of me. I can see things that were never there before, shapes and colors shaping an odd scene that comfort my thoughts. As my soul transcends, I feel peaceful and calm, understanding the purpose of nature's bearing. I am the dawn of horizons. I am the surge of tides. I am the seed of entities. I am the ether of oceans.
And now you have to consider the fact with Apollo, was there really anybody on board any of those? I don't think so.
There's a strong case for saying there was nobody on board.
When you take into account the sound level of a Saturn V rocket.
It's a good point.
If you said to an engineer, we need to insulate the Apollo craft, so you start at 205 decibels, and if you cut that by half, and they come back and said that's still too loud, so they cut it by half again, you have reduced the sound volume by 75%. And if you get in that spacecraft, it'll still kill you when you reduce it by 75%, because that's still 185 decibels. And people have to realize what the decibel scale is.
It's a logarithmic scale.
That's right. So when you reduce it by 75%, you make it 75% quieter with insulation in that craft, it's still loud enough to liquefy your organs because you are dead at 180 and it's 185. It's still 50% louder than what it takes to kill you.
And if you're sitting on a rocket 360 foot up, when the thing takes off, maximum power, you're going to hear it. You're not beyond the sound levels. You're going to hear it.
They keep saying it's behind you, but it's not.
That only applies if you're traveling faster than the speed of sound.
I think it's the Apollo 17 launch that was at night. You can see the sky, the sound waves lighting up the sky around it, right up wrapping over top of it. So it's vibrating the air fast enough that it's causing enough friction in the air molecules to make them light up.
Yeah, and that takes quite a lot of power to do that.
That's going to create a lot of heat energy into a person's body if you're vibrating their molecules like that, right? And like I said, at it's 180,000 cycles per second that vibration's at, it's just going to be like an ultrasonic cleaner.
Yeah, well, and of course one has to remember that with Apollo, there was this underground shelter that was built and an escape tube for the astronauts, that if there was a problem on the rocket, they could get away from it down this tube into this reinforced bunker underneath the launch site. There's film of people coming down the chute, getting into the bunker. It was equipped for several days of residence. So I think you're right. There was no astronaut on board the Apollo craft because they didn't dare put somebody on who could have been killed. They'd already experienced this with Apollo 1, where you had 3 astronauts burnt to death because some idiot didn't know that if you have an electric spark inside a pure oxygen environment, it's going to explode and burn.
There was a lot of issues going on in the 1960s, wasn't there? A lot of issues. So, the cult of Bigfootery. Let's talk about it. You know, nobody wants to talk about it. Hell, nobody wants to talk about what we just talked about. But if we did talk about it, there would be no more discussion about going anywhere outside of this place. Because first of all, the decibels at 180, that's death. Even with all the equipment and all the protection, it wasn't sufficient. What's up, Batman? Bat Mom, how's it going? Sorry about that. At 85, that's even the 75% reduction of sound to still liquefy you. That's the reality of things. So there was a lot going on in the 1960s. What's up, Sasquatch Secrets? How you doing? Well, you should enjoy this. You've already seen this before, but we'll talk about it anyways. How you doing, Nikki? So yeah, this whole thing about Bigfootery, man, and what was going on in the 1960s. We're going to talk about a little bit about the Patterson film. We're talking a little about the CIA, about technology that is present today and present back then, and that they're far ahead of us when it came to. Good, I'm glad to hear that. What's up, Diesel? So yeah, there's an argument out there that says that there wasn't technology. They didn't have the technology when it comes to the Patterson and Gilman suit. And, I've been really, that was the one thing that I was having. I mean, I've had my experiences. I've seen things that certainly look like what people say a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot looks like. Can't prove it to you, and my life depended upon it. That's what the great frustration of all this is. And there's a whole lot of other people who've had similar experiences, right? And all that we got is this Patterson film and some footprints. And so The Patterson film it's tossing up a coin here. Now, but the video we're going to watch eventually is from a gentleman that a lot of people don't like. Or gentlemen that a lot of people don't like, especially in the Bigfoot community. But when you really listen to what they have to say in their criticism about the their argument of the possibility that it could have been a person in a suit. Now I know there's be a lot of people who can be upset with me about this because heck, I'm friends, or at least I hope I still am, with M.K. Davis, and M.K. Davis is not going to be happy with me for saying this stuff. But one has to weigh out the evidence. I wasn't there in 1967. None of us were. And there's this argument out there that doesn't hold much water, and say that they didn't have the technology back then to make a suit. We're going to watch a little bit of what's going on in the past couple decades. Actually, when we see this, it's not the past couple decades. This is 1980s. The CIA and their technology, when it comes to costumes, faking people, close proximity, and extended period of times, and people not even realize there's somebody in a mask. So to think that they wouldn't have the technology to make a Bigfoot suit in 1967 is questionable. At the end of the day, it's up to, it's just, we're still just, flip a coin, was it real? Was it not real? Who the hell knows? We weren't there. We weren't there. You weren't there. I wasn't there. And the people that were there, pretty much, except for Gimlin, I mean, who's around? There's a lot of motives to fake this stuff. I'm not saying that Bigfoot's not real because I had my own experiences. For whatever it's worth. It's worth something to me. Probably shouldn't be worth much any to you. Just saying, it's just my word against yours. That's not very useful when it comes to getting anything closer to reality. So, but we're going to start with just the first 5-10 minutes. Just check this out. See this? Hopefully they won't take me down. And because there's bits and pieces of TED Talk and all that, but hopefully get through that. And if we get through that, then we should be okay. And then we're going to watch a documentary that a lot of people hate, and a lot of people are going to hate on me for playing the documentary. And I've known about the documentary, but I've been really thinking about a lot of things. The people I've been interviewing, outside of Nikki, actually, she seemed to be the most objective person that I've interviewed in the past 2-3 months. And she says she's never even seen one. So at least she's being honest about it. But there's a lot of people that I've interviewed, and there's so many red flags, and I've been real patient about it, and I give you the benefit of the doubt. And I just let them, shoot themselves in the foot, figuratively speaking. And you're just like, it just cannot be. It cannot be so. I mean, we're like adults here, and we can't just because somebody says something or spins a great tale doesn't mean that it's any truth to it. So we're really in a dilemma here. But I want you to check this out. And after you watch this and just think about stuff, a lot of things are going on in the 1960s. There's the Vietnam War. Right? We know it's overwhelming evidence, the fact about Laurel Canyon and the connection with the military, CIA, and Hollywood. And they produce a ton of videos. The Laurel Canyon was the anti-war movement to squash that. They created all these bands and this music that were the soundtrack to the late 60s and early 70s. Bands like Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young. The Yardbirds. On and on it goes. And Buffalo Springfield, Frank Zappa, all these, just don't forget about the Grateful Dead and their connections. And don't forget about the Timothy Leary and the push of these, drugs and LSD on the populace and get everyone all drugged up. And then you have this issue about going to the moon, and there's overwhelming evidence, and there's an avalanche of evidence if one cares to look, but very few people will discipline themselves to look into it. But if you just really seriously look into it, I just showed you step one. I plan on actually focusing on how I'm going to be focusing a lot in the next couple months on how they faked the moon landing and how they can't go past low orbit. And they've known this for long. You can't get past the Van Allen belt. For whatever their motives for deceiving the world and the American populace, you can argue to you're blue in the face. But the fact of the matter is, we haven't been back in 50 some years, and we ain't coming. We ain't ever going back to the moon. Now think about this. It's still 1960s. And if you think there's not a correlation, there's some possible correlation when it comes to the Patterson film, Hollywood, and Bigfootery, and capitalizing on that to maybe steer the narrative, get people arguing about things that maybe aren't really the right questions to be asking. I think we get done with it. It should get you to at least start thinking about it. It's not going to make a lot of people happy. And you're going to ask me, who the hell am I? I'm just another Joe. Just another critter on the bus. I just bothered to ask some questions. That's all. It does not make you a popular person asking questions. In fact, people get, you know what I think the problem is? It's just like religion. Just like religion. And what's happened with Bigfootery is it's turned into a religion. And when you have, it's based on flimsy evidence, stuff you can't prove, you can't qualify, you can't, think about the law of contradictions, the law of identity, and actualization. How can we possibly, after all this time, we can't go to the moon, and we can't get another decent, it's questionable, actually, that the Patterson film is actually a decent bit of footage off of Sasquatch. That's the truth. I'm not saying that Bigfoot's not real. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that bit of footage, it's got a lot of problems with it that you don't have to be that technically savvy to start seeing. You just got to be willing to push back the cognitive dissonance, question the thing, and say, where's the evidence to support this, that this was legit? How's come after all these decades, still don't have anything close to it? But let's check this out, because this thing, it will make you think, at the bare minimum, of how easily it is for us to be tricked. Let's see, here we go.
My name is Jonna Mendez, and I was chief of disguise at the CIA. One of the things that was going on when I was chief of disguise was an enormous research program into the new advanced disguise system. It was basically the masks that everybody always wondered if we used masks, and this was the beginning. This is a series of photographs of when I met George H.W. Bush in the Oval Office and revealed to him that I was briefing him wearing a mask.
Now, In particular, and regarding this photograph, it is a Getty's image photograph. If you go to the link, you can see the photographer, all those kinds of details, who took it. So what is the anomaly with this particular photograph?
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks? This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
It was a big challenge to come up with something that finally actually animated and worked to really fool a person, but we did.
They learned the art.
We actually brought Hollywood back into our labs at one point to look at what we had done, and they were stunned. They're absolutely stunned.
Congratulations.
My husband was Tony Mendez, and he was played by Ben Affleck in the movie called Argo.
Aliens and robots?
Yes, sir.
You're telling me that there is a movie company in Hollywood right now that is funded by the CIA?
Yes, sir.
Are there many actors in Hollywood who also moonlight as agents, do you think?
I think there are probably quite a few, yes. I think probably Hollywood is full of CIA agents, and we just don't know it. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to discover that, this was extremely common.
Tony, they didn't mention it in the movie, but Tony had deep connections to Hollywood, to the tradespeople out in LA that did a lot of things we were interested in doing. Special effects people, makeup people. Tony was chief of disguise 10 years before I was chief of disguise. And so he passed on some of his expertise to me. But he had a particular interest in the magic industry out in LA. Not so much the magicians on the stage, but the people that were working behind the scenes to make that magic happen. So we went to LA and we posed some questions to them. We said, we have a problem. We're looking for novel solutions. Well, LA did have some ideas, of course. That's what they do for a living. They introduced us to a new concept. They said, what you are calling an operation, we call a performance. That's what we do. We put on performances. And before we start working on that performance, we have to define the stage that the performance is going to take place on. Then you have to know who your audience is. Who are you playing to? Who are you trying to fool? Once you assemble those two pieces, you can pretty much choose the time and choose the place and simply overwhelm them with your performance. Then they showed us some tools that they used. The one that really caught our eye is what's called a stunt double mask. You all know how they're used. When the movie star is so famous or so good looking that they can't risk damaging him, we liked the idea of stunt double masks. They're quick on, they're quick off, they dramatically change your appearance, and we started using them and found them to be valuable to our operations. But that audience piece of it did not allow you to get close enough to one of those masks before the illusion fell apart and you saw it was a mask. So we went back to our disguise labs out at Langley and we invented a whole new genre of masks. Masks that are so good, that are so realistic, that you can actually get up close and have a personal contact with someone for an extended period of time. They're good enough that you can brief the President of the United States in the Oval Office wearing a mask. And he isn't sure if it's you or if it's someone else. Those masks were the beginning of a whole new generation of work that we did at the CIA. Once we could make these masks that fit you so well, then we discovered we could make a twin. We could make another you. There could be two of you. We could actually make 5 or 6 of you, but usually one extra was all we needed.
We will respond accordingly. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
But that's only the tip of the iceberg. As longtime CIA lawyer John Rizzo tells it, the relationship between the spy agency and La La Land is quite cozy. In his new book, Company Men, Rizzo says that actors, producers, and other movie-making power players were always happy to help out the CIA in any way they could.
You work for the very enemy you thought you were fighting.
It's impossible.
Then tell me why you've never been to Langley. You've been lied to. All lower-level agents have been lied to. I am trying to help you here.
So you're saying I'm working for the enemy? And that you are the enemy?
Today, this is your last chance. You have to go.
So, see, it's going to make some people upset, but let's think about a couple of things. So this gal, the images of her faking out George Bush Sr., when was he a president? 1988. She said her husband, it was interesting, it's all in the family type of thing. Isn't it interesting? Husband and wife team? Shouldn't be shocking, right? So that's 10. So that's 10 years. Okay. She said that after 10 years, that she took over her husband's role, which is amazing when you think about it. Chief to disguise, is that what it is? Something like that. And then another 10 years, 11 years. 1966, 1967. To assume that the CIA, that the government, and the Hollywood did not have the technology to fake this argument, number one, did not have the technology to fake the Patterson footage and the suit is hogwash. It's really hogwash. I know there's a certain group of people that like us to believe that. Oh, like the CIA and the government. That they would love us to believe that, actually, right? But we have enough evidence, and it doesn't take very much effort to really start looking into it to say, you know what? Nah, they could have pulled that off. Here's another thing. She talks about the fact about the key in this magic in the past was, and what the dilemma was for the CIA in the 70s and the 80s was close contact, right? Getting too close to the subject or the person that's being spied on, right? And people realizing that they're talking to someone in a mask. Now, when we look at the Patterson film, there's no close contact, none whatsoever. And in fact, it's quite distant. And this is the brutal reality of things. We have few seconds of it, very grainy stuff. There's been a lot of doctoring of the imagery. I want to believe that the Patterson film is real. I really do. But I'm checking my cognitive biases. And just like when I used to believe when it came to Jesus, and I started questioning it, and that fell apart, and the Bible, that fell apart. Checking this stuff and it's falling apart, they could have faked that quite easily. In fact, it looks to me like pros, somebody at least was influenced by pros, or maybe it's just really clever dudes and maybe some gals involved, knew exactly how to fake this back in 1967. And one of the keys is to make a costume that was realistic enough and distance. It's a real key thing, right? If you're going to pull off a hoax, I've discovered, even today, if you're going to do the amateur stuff, I myself have been burnt on. I mean, Rick Gramarak and the alleged gargoyle in his backyard, which millions of people have watched it, and thousands of channels out there, right, have played it over and over again, and it turned out it was just him all along. He admits it. We got video of him admitting it to me, not even making it up. So you can watch it, you can listen to it, and you can see it, and he clearly made it up. So it doesn't take that much to convince the gullible, and there's times I have to admit I'm the gullible. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. I'm pointing. If I do point the finger at anybody, there's 3 pointing right back at me. So I'm being honest about that, right? So I want to believe that the Patterson film is real, just like so many of the rest of you do, right? Does everything have to be a damn frickin' lie? Turns out, in this realm, it just might be the case. It just might be the case, which is very disappointing. So, and we get rid of watch a video. Most of you probably, some of you have seen, most of you probably haven't seen. It's been around for a while, for 15 plus years, 10. And the guy, it's actually part of this and part of making it. He's attacked my friend M.K. Davis, right? I want to believe that M.K. Davis and what he's saying is legit when it comes to the Patterson film and Patty. But there is that possibility that my friend might be so much obsessed about this footage and put so much time into it that his cognitive dissonance, his biases have gotten in the way. I don't think he had bad intentions. I really don't believe he had bad intentions. I like MK, but he could be wrong. The problem is there's no way to confirm, to qualify this, to verify this, to actualize it. And here's the actualization. It's a really important process in discovering the truth of something. That means to reproduce it, to do it over, to demonstrate it, right? It seems that no one seems to be able to do it. Well, I find shocking. Now, mind you, the BBC, they did some kind of bogus documentary trying to prove or disprove that it was a suit. But remember, it's the BBC, which is controlled by British intel, and they work side by side with the American CIA and Canadian as well, and their intel services. And so you know what, we're really, you can't trust anything on television. You really can't. By the way, the video that you saw about the Apollo missions and about how you will be liquefied at 180, you'll be dead in 180 decibels. And you will be liquefied at 185 decibels, no matter what they do. And so, and by the way, that didn't come from any program on the television. It came from serious researchers who spent an enormous amount of time, not just researchers, but men that have engineering and scientific backgrounds. And there's a reason why my cousin Neil, he used to work for NASA, and he left after about a little over a decade. And the reason he left because he couldn't stand the corruption. He couldn't live with himself anymore. Believe it or not. Don't believe it, don't believe it, whatever. I know they are real. I don't need someone else to believe to make it. Yeah, I mean, I know that, at least from what I experienced, Sasquatch, Bigfoot is real. but it's not adding up to what the Patterson film. That's the problem. The Patterson film, I think we've been duped. I think we've been played. You know what I mean? Because we want to believe, don't we? We want to believe. Exactly, Mike. Yeah. So I mean, it's not a question to me whether Bigfoot or Sasquatch is real. This question is, in our blind faith, like cult members, just like believing in Jesus or God of the Bible or the Bible's infallible word of God, instead of challenging any of this stuff or questioning any things or really poking at it to prove, because if it's real true, if it's truth, it's going to hold. It's going to sustain itself. It's not going to budge. It might budge a little bit, but it's going to snap back, and it's going to be reality. If it's a whole bunch of holes in the theory or the hypothesis or a story, and you know what, you can't verify it, you can't quantify it, you can't, then you have to be honest about stuff. Well, you don't have to be honest about it. A lot of people will never, they'll never be honest about much of anything in their lives, except their contempt for you and I. But outside of that, they really don't really care about the truth that much. They just want to be part of the group and be accepted by other people. They don't want to go through the discomfort of and confrontation leads to the truth. And if you're not willing to go through it, you'll always be an easy dupe, an easy victim. So, think about what we just watched there, right? Just some data points to look at. You see, listen, there's a lot going on in the 1960s. To say that they didn't have the technology to fake the Patterson film is absolute rubbish. That's absolute rubbish. And you underestimate the government, our military, and the alphabet agencies that manipulate your life. And after what we just witnessed the past 4 years, if you think they can't pull this off, this documentary, they're going to say this, the greatest hoax of the century or whatever it is, which is, it clearly isn't, far from it. And the people that even have created this documentary, there's a couple of characters in there, you're just like, Yeah, I mean, anybody that's done any kind of research about anything knows that there's far greater hoaxes perpetrated on this planet and American citizens than the Patterson film. Far more. Yeah, World War II, that's something to think about right there when you're really looking into that, the story behind that. And when you realize how close the oligarchs of the West and the East are like, they're so tied together. They're just working in unison. So Russia, they can say they're our enemy. Who have we had the longest treaty with? Do you know who that is? It was Russia. Did you know that? Look it up. Did you know in the Civil War, what country guarded the ports in New York and in San Francisco during the Civil War? Was the Brits? Was it the French? Was it somebody else? No, it was actually the Russians. When you start really looking into this stuff, we've been played so bad in so many different areas to just blindly accept the Patterson film that somehow magically got its butt. This film got its into all these theaters and into my bedroom and my big brother's bedroom and in our closets with those pictures. That picture, the famous picture of Patty. And just think that was all just commerce, and it was just a good salesmanship, right? Just the craftiness of this one character, right? Mr. Patterson, right? I doubt it. I doubt that guy, he might have been pretty crafty about things, but he couldn't. I don't care how crafty you are. That's not how the world works. Not one individual, as much as they want to make you believe that one individual can change the world. No. There's no example of that ever happening. Individuals with a lot of power and clout can do that. And what would be the advantage of the military industrial complex, the government? Did you guys pay any attention to the history of all the social unrest throughout the United States in the 1960s, especially in 1966 and 67? Yeah, that would be a great distraction. Encourage these guys to do it. Help them out. Hey, he's got, Roger Patterson has a shady past. He really does. He would be a perfect dupe. Guy never wanted to work. I don't blame him. Who wants to work? You know what I mean? If you don't have to, right? And you know what? He gets a father-in-law that was a millionaire. Did you know that? If Patty Patterson, whatever her name is, you know what? Their father was he was a millionaire. He had an asphalt business company. He was no chump. I guarantee you, whatever we've been told, I don't care who you are, where you've been doing this, and how long you've been doing this, you've been fucked with. And there's a lot of people that are in the Bigfoot community who do have connections with the intelligence, the military intelligence, and they don't have a problem messing with your head. They think it's a patriotic thing to mess with your head. They really do. They don't have a problem with it. Most of them we're so compartmentalized, we'd have no idea what anybody's doing. It takes a lot of effort to get to this point to figure this stuff out, right? I'm not saying this film is 100% the silver bullet that can convince us of any of this stuff, but I will tell you this much. There's some good information in this film. And confidence man, yeah. And so, and it just is reality. It is our reality. And it's just not, I don't see any point really in like pointing fingers at this guy, that person, because you know what? We've all been messed with here. And we're, some are worse than others, some are better than others, but the fact that collectively as a group, we've been messed with. We should not be dealing with this. And anybody of any rationale, any just common sense would say after half a century to be in this state of confusion still, to be divided this over a bit of film, and that's all we got. We are being set up. It's self-evident. It's the same thing that they use in religions. It's the truth. It's not even me being my opinion. That's exactly how religions and cults operate. Do I believe that everybody that's in the Bigfoot community is 100% in the cult of Bigfoot? No. But I do believe if you have a conscience, you're constantly being drawn back into it, right? You fight it, get drawn back into it, fight it, get drawn back to. Hopefully, as you grow, you become stronger. You start to realize, the only way you're going to know if any of this stuff is really going to have to do it on your own. And if you do have like what happened to me and others, guess what? You're still on your own. There's no way of proving to you, no matter what I do. I am going to write a book, not that I expect to make a dime off it. The book is really a diary to pass on to my son, okay? I don't expect anybody to read it. On honesty, I don't even care if they do. But the fact of the matter is, I want to document it. I want to say, son, this is what I went through. This is the reason why I went through it. And as the old saying goes, be careful what you ask for. Okay? And I'm not, as much as I despise how corrupt our government is, and the military industrial complexes, and the military and everything's going on. I'm not anti-military. I'm not, far from it. In fact, if my son were to say, and he's talked about it, and I have not discouraged him, but if he would say, I want to join, he's talking about joining the Air Force, I'm going to say, go for it. You know what I mean? If that's who you are, go for it. Make the most out of your life. Just understand that nothing is as it seems, period. And, it's good to understand that, maybe you better learn, if there's one person you better learn how to trust in this world, is yourself. And I'm going to believe in you, my son. If no one else does, and if I can teach you to believe in yourself to get through this shit show of a life, then that's nothing more I can do. And you know what? There's nothing. I don't like it. No one likes it, right? The people in the military. I know people. My brother was Green Beret. He hated it. You know what I mean? He hated the politics. He hated all the corruption that's going on in the military. What can you do about it? That same corruption is going to be in the corporate world and in the churches and in the Bigfoot community, because this seems to be human nature. Anyways, so now that I did my rant, let's listen to this video. Some of you might have seen it, some of you haven't. Don't just dismiss it. This guy, the author of the book and what this video is about, he really got the crap kicked out of him, and he shouldn't have got the crap kicked out of him in the Bigfoot community. I do believe that there were puppeteers, there's people pulling strings that made it happen. But the guy has a right to his opinion. In the end of the day, this should not be about, well, I'm taking this side or that side. If we're all interested, if we really just commit to one thing, I want to know the truth. That's it. No sides, except the side of truth. Wherever it takes me, as unpopular as it is. And if we really cared about the truth, and if it takes us somewhere that's going to make everyone else, my God, we're in the Bigfoot community. We're already isolated. It's enough. Why don't we just go all the way with it, right? Come on. And look at the people that make fun of us just for even saying that Bigfoot's real, or saying that you think that Bigfoot's real. That's enough to put a mark on you, right? Anyways, let's check this out. Let's see if I just make sure I don't screw up here. And so we did that. I think it's 3. Is it 3? It isn't, probably not 3. Is it 3? I'm going to try this. If it doesn't work, then it's 4. Okay.
You to move on to your next life.
Wrong one. Let's try this.
The name is Bigfoot. Whereabouts? Unknown. Throughout the ages, thousands claim to have seen it, from the forests of Northwest America to the Himalayas. Yet in all this time, no hard evidence of its existence had been found. But on October 20th, 1967, 2 men, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, went riding in the forest near Bluff Creek in Northern California and encountered a big, hairy creature walking upright like a man. Bigfoot. They grabbed their movie camera and shot one sensational minute of footage that became known as the Patterson-Gimlin film. This film and encounter became the Bible for Bigfoot believers everywhere, and no one since has presented such compelling evidence. Experts from all over the world have studied this film frame by frame, hoping to learn more about the creature. But what people don't know is that the Patterson-Gimlin film was an absolute fake.
Ray Wallace was the kind of guy that liked to leave an impression in the Bigfoot world. I mean literally leave impressions. Hundreds of them possibly, maybe more. The Wallace legacy begins in Laird Meadow in Six Rivers National Forest in California. Wallace worked building roads for the U.S. Forest Service. It was in Laird Meadow where people discovered certain things about Wallace's roads that set them apart from others. These things were tracks, large tracks, Bigfoot tracks, he claimed, that walked along the side of the road everywhere Wallace went, in essence following him from place to place. Along with Wallace's roads, he created something much larger than that and larger than life itself, the myth of Bigfoot. He even claimed that he had a baby Bigfoot locked in a box. Here's what he wrote to the Calamity Courier, October 1st, 1969. Bigfoot used to be very tame, as I had seen him most every morning on the way to work. I would sit in my pickup and toss apples out of the window to him. He never did catch an apple, but he sure tried. Then, as he ate the apples, I would have my movie camera clipping off more footage of him. I've talked to several movie companies about selling my movies, which would last for 3 hours. The best offer I've had so far is $250,000. With Wallace, it was a family affair. This is a shot from one of his movies of his wife in a Bigfoot outfit. It's likely that Wallace made every one of the tracks seen in this footage, and perhaps a lot more that we haven't seen. After the death of Ray Wallace in 2002, the family of Wallace went public with claims that he had started the Bigfoot phenomenon with fake footprints made from a wooden foot-shaped cutout left in California sites in 1958. In addition, David Daegling stated that Wallace had a degree of involvement with the Patterson-Gimlin film and that this gave grounds for suspicion of it. The evidence for this involvement is Wallace's alleged statement. I felt sorry for Roger Patterson. He told me that he had cancer of the lymph glands, and he was desperately broke, and he wanted to try to get something where he could have a little income.
Having moved to the Seattle area permanently in 1997, I realized Roger Patterson was a subject that I could look into. He claimed to have taken a 60-second film clip of a Bigfoot, an actual Bigfoot. Again, a subject of the paranormal, which interests me. So I realized I was only about 2.5 hours away from Mill Creek, here near Seattle, to Yakima, and I began to travel over there and dig into who was Roger Patterson, just ask the locals who was he. And I was amazed at the information that became pouring out from these local ranchers and farmers and everyday people about this man, Roger Patterson. And the picture of Roger Patterson really was a very pleasant one as far as I was concerned. A lot of publicity come out about the film in 1967. It continued, and even today continues to be very popular as supposed evidence of Bigfoot. And no information was ever written that I could find in my research about Roger Patterson, the man, the photographer. And it's quite simple. When you're going to investigate anything, and it's an adage in journalism: who, what, when, where, why, and how are the key questions that a journalist always asks about a story. And so, when the Patterson subject came up, I decided I was going to ask those questions: who was he? Where did he live? What did he do? Why did he do it? What motivated him? How did this whole film come about? And so I approached it as an investigator would approach a crime, if you will. We have a piece of evidence, supposedly a live Bigfoot, first time ever photographed. Is it a real piece of evidence? Could it be a hoax? What about the photographer? Was he an honest man? Had he integrity? Was he truthful? What was his background? What was his belief system, and that sort of thing? So I investigated in that respect using science and the tools of journalism. You put the film aside and you take a look at Roger and you ask the question, could this guy be a hoaxer? I guess one way to find out is ask his friends and neighbors and family members. The scientists that promoted this and supported this never did that. For scientists to behave in that manner is to say they're not even scientists, because you need to go to the original source and those supporting sources for this purported evidence, and that was never done. It's amazing that in some ways you need that the story is almost like it's a small community, almost family story in itself. Bob Hieronymus, who wore the Bigfoot suit, was a childhood friend of Patty Patterson, Roger's widow. Grew up with Patricia Patterson, knows her personally today. Bob Hieronymus knows Bob Gimlin, as you say, he's a neighbor, and they all lived and continue to live in a small Western Washington town. What I was shocked hearing from one of the people I talked to was, well, we've always known it's a hoax, but no one ever came to Yakima and asked us about it. And that's the failure of the Roger Patterson Bigfoot myth, which is what it is that the media ran with it, scientists ran with it, the television industry, of course, ran with it and promoted it. And for some bizarre reason, no one ever decided to dig into who Roger Patterson was and who he was surrounded with.
Well, Roger, Bob, and myself were involved in probably one of the greatest hoaxes that's ever been pulled off in history. Roger, he was a kind of a little bitty guy, stout little feller. He was all right then. Him and Bob, were looking over at Mount St. Helens, and we're in there for this Bigfoot thing, and they'd go over there, and in fact, Roger wrote a book and a bunch of stuff, and then this Wallace thing come out down there at Bluff Creek, where he had the Caterpillar parked up there, and he made the prints, and people would keep people from stealing the fuel and stuff, and so away they went, and they scoured the place out for a week or so, and they come back, and that's when I guess Roger ordered a suit from Philip Morris. Roger asked me if I would. He said, "I got this suit, this gorilla suit." He says, and nothing's illegal. He said, "Now, would you be willing to wear this suit? I'll give you $1,000. We're going to make a movie off this, and we're going to film this and send it to the movies. People in California are going to make a whole lot of money." I said, $1,000 in '67. That's a pretty good chunk of change for a 26-year-old guy like me, So I said, yeah, as long as it ain't illegal, I'll do it. So I went up there and tried the suit on. Of course, Roger modified it, put the boobs on, the padding, and the waders, and for the.
All right, so that's the first little segment of that. So we got Ray Wallace been talked about. We got Roger Patterson, and shoot, I forgot the guy's name. The one wearing the who's in the suit. Anyways, my head's on 20 different things. So yeah, Nikki, if you're listening to me and you're interested and you want to join me, you're reading the book. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. I mean, I haven't read the book yet. I haven't got the book yet. There it is. Big Bob. So yeah, it's I haven't mastered this side of things, but I've been listening. I've watched this video a couple of times, and I've been really questioning things always been questioning things actually for the past 7 years. What I experienced and what's going on with the Bigfoot community. And yeah, if you want to, let me know if you want to join. You know what I'll do? I'll just send an invite now, and if you're interested, just join on in. I would appreciate to have what you have to say. I mean, there's a reason why I asked Nikki to join me and invite me on my channels, because she, of all the people I was listening to, she seemed to be one of the few more objective people. So, what can you do about it? I mean, So anyways, I'm like thinking of 20 different things here. So, but the important thing here is to keep going with this video, and let's get into the next thing. And if Nikki wants to join, you can. And I'm not going to invite anybody else. So, nothing personal. I just I know Nikki well enough to know that we're having an objective conversation. So now I just remember where I was at with all this. I think, God, I don't want to screw this up. When I downloaded these, I had to download these in sections. Let's see, that was 3. I think we're on 4 now. Are we on 4? Sorry for the delay. Shoot. Yeah, so it has before. Sorry about that.
Muscle mass and that stuff. And I tried the suit on, and he showed me how he wanted me to walk. And of course, everybody say I walk that way anyway. But I went up and down the pasture there a few times at his place up there on the South Fork. And he said, that's it. That's just exactly the way I want you to do it. They left like on a Sunday. They come and picked up one of my horses, the one Bob was riding, the big horse, and they took off, and they told me to meet him down there on Wednesday afternoon or evening at 5 o'clock at a little town called Wetchepec, the gas station. Well, I met him there, and I pulled in there. One of them, Roger, Bob, one, come running out there and says, going up the road, there's a pull-off out here. We don't want people seeing us associated together, all 3 of us there. So I drove on up the road and waited for them, and they finally filled their truck up and come up there. We went up the road there, about 5 miles up on Bluff Creek up there, and they had a camp set up there. And it was getting dark by then, and I drove. It takes about 12, 14 hours to drive down there from here. I was tired, and I crawled up in the back of the doghouse on the truck where they keep the saddles and the hay and stuff for horses, and had a sleep bag and rolled out and went to sleep. And the next morning we got up, had coffee and bullshit and saddled the horses up, and had the suit was in a sack, a big gunny sack, and we threw that over one of the back of the horses, and I jumped on the back of Bob with my old horse, and we went up. It was about a half a mile from the camp, and unloaded the suit, and they helped me get in the suit. Naturally, they had to help me get in. It was kind of bulky, you know. And Roger said, "Now you go over here and stand this certain place." I walked over there, and he said, "When I say go, you start moving. You know, you're doing your walk." So I yelled, and I started moving, and so he was sitting on the horse, going like this with the camera. So supposedly the horse was bucking, you know, and, which is not true. Anyway, he filmed it, and as soon as they got done, we rode back to camp. Roger had an envelope already made out, stamped and everything, and he put the film out of the camera, put it in there. I took it in the car. I put it in the car, put the suit in the trunk of the car. I took the film to Eureka, California, and mailed it to Yakima. I jumped in the car and I stayed overnight there. And the next morning I got up and come home. And the next day they come back with the truck after they had gone to Willow Creek or wherever they went to announce the filming of the Bigfoot, you know. And they spread the word around and hoopla. And anyway, they come on home and they dropped my horse off at the house down the road here and took the suit. In them days, you didn't lock your car or anything. They took the suit out of the trunk of the car, and that's the last I saw of the suit. Well, he had put the boobs on it, you know, for a female. He had shaved part of it, you know, with a razor, kind of make it look like the, you know, been through the brush and the hair slid off. And he redone the face on the suit that Philip sent him. He redone that with a mat, some kind of a leather. Before we left down there, Roger said when I turned to look at him, he told me when to turn, you know. And I said, well, I have a prosthesis eye. And I said, I had an extra one. I said, why don't you mold that in that mask part there on the eye socket and put it at an angle. When I turn my head, I'm looking right at you with that eye. Perfect. He said, good idea. And that's what he done it. If you notice, the eye shines. This eye on the left side is sunk back in behind the mask. A lot of people say, well, there's scientists, so-called scientists, will tell you there's not a human being that can walk that way. Everybody in the world around here has known me and said that he walks that way anyway. Some of those scientists said you can see the mouth moving. The mouth never moved a fraction, nothing. I kept it quiet. I promised Roger I wouldn't tell anybody. I kept it quiet for 35 years. I saw the world's greatest hoaxes, which Bob Kiviat produced on television. And I said, this time people knew the truth. Everybody around this part of the country knew it, and it was me anyway. A week after they saw the film, or the film came out. Well, that's Bob Hieronymus. That's Bob. Well, I've been called a liar, a lot of times. But you can go from 2 miles down the road here to 30 miles that way and ask anybody over 50 years old who Bigfoot was, and they can tell you. Before they come and drop the horse off, I was asleep or something. My nephew and my mom were going to go to town for groceries or something. Anyway, she opened up the trunk lid to do something, and there was this suit laying in there. Well, the gorilla faces more. She jumped back, Of course, after a little bit, they got closer and saw it wasn't alive. And my nephew tried the head of it on. He ran around the house down here and was trying to scare everybody. And my aunt used to live right here across the road from us. She was down there, and she tried it on. But, there was 8 or 9 people who saw the suit. And then you see it on television. Well, that's the same thing that was laying in the trunk of the car. What about, stuff on the feet? What about the shaved hair? What about, the different... He said, don't worry about none of that. Roger said, you're going to be far enough away, nobody could tell the difference anyway. They say the thing is supposed to be 7, 8 foot tall. Well, I was a little over 6 foot tall. They said, well, how is somebody going to tell if you're 7 foot tall when you're clear over there or if you're 4 foot tall? I said, you can tell, see that little tree right there? As far away as that is, I can say that's that big around when it's only this big around, They said they can see the mouth moving. That's Here's Bun. He saw the suit.
We were in the water hole having beers. Yeah. Hawker wanted us to come out and look at this, and so that's exactly what we did. We went out there, and he opened the trunk up, and sure enough, there it were. And didn't know if it was a stolen fur coat but it was the suit.
Bob was asleep. He got in that night, early or morning or sometime. Anyway, I was going to go get some fruit, and I was raised up the trunk to put my boxes in there. And here was the black suit laying in there.
Well, I met Bob Hieronymus, and this may sound really old-fashioned to people who don't remember this time, because it may not exist anymore, but it used to be that people could make what's called a gentleman's agreement with a handshake. It was as strong as a contract that could be enforced by a court. And Bob Hieronymus told me I made an agreement to Roger Patterson that I wouldn't tell anybody. I'll wear the suit, pay me $1,000, that's all that I want, but I won't tell anyone about it. He would tell some friends and neighbors about his experience quietly in Yakima, never seeking the limelight. And it's only when I began looking into the Patterson story, and he found out that I was there in the Yakima Valley looking into it, that he finally said, you know something, I think it's time that I just tell this. So he simply told the truth. And the reaction is, you're a liar, Bob. You're a liar. Bob Hieronymus took 2 polygraph tests. He took one by Yakima Sheriff, Yakima County Sheriff, and he took another one on a show called Lie Detector. It was a show that lasted perhaps 1 season, but he was given a lie detector exam by an FBI examiner, and he passed that test as well. Yeah, what I found in my investigation was the bottom of all of this was money. And in fact, Roger Patterson stated after he took this film, quote, I'm going to make $1 million. He said that. That's on record. After he took this film, scientists did look at it. It is a fairly convincing film for those who are untutored in the subject of Bigfoot. It looks like a very large, very muscular, ape-like man. swinging his arms like an ape, if you will. And so it was rather intriguing when it came out. But once you dig into who Roger Patterson was and who his connections were at the time as well, because he wasn't the only one who was looking for Bigfoot when this film was shot. There were a number of other people, big-named Bigfoot personalities, if you will, who were also looking for evidence for Bigfoot. When you start to look into his connections, who he met, where he went, what he was doing, you realize that this wasn't something that just happened by accident, but there was planning involved in it. There was preparation involved in it. It's shocking to think that scientists at that time, and there apparently are some even today, who then and even now continue to believe that this is an unknown primate. To think that this was actually looked at and evaluated by members of the Smithsonian Institute, which is one of our revered institutions in Washington, is shocking. This was presented to Life magazine for consideration to do a story on it. It was taken to a number of other scientists who evaluated in terms of its ape-like characteristics. These are anthropologists. These are
anthropologists. Oh, that's weaponization of anthropology. It's a real thing. Anyways, so let's go over this a little bit. Not that I'm. So one thing that's interesting that he brought up, the Bob Hieronymus, what he brought up was perspective, and he said he gives his, puts hand, circumference of a tree, and he says, "Oh, look how big." You can't. Perspective is a huge problem, especially up in the sky. But even a place that you don't know, you're not familiar with. Here's the other thing too. It's like, okay, so allegedly it's filmed in 1967. And I say that sincerely, allegedly 1967, because there's a possibility that it was filmed before. There's a possibility. Who knows? I'm going to get my ducks in a row here. First of all, so John L. Johnson, that Nikki brought up. I don't like John. He's probably a nice guy. Maybe if you get to know him. I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't attack the individual. But him, the video that he did on MK, I thought that he could have done a better job. And when he was on your show as well, Nikki, if you're still around, I thought he could have done a better job. He didn't have to go through all that personal attacks. That was really disheartening. Because, that's the one thing we don't need anymore. We don't need any more of this personal attacks. You know what I mean? I met MK Davis. I don't think I honestly think I have no impression after all the 60 plus hours I spent with him that he was making up any of this as far as him believing it. I'm not saying he didn't manipulate the data. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying, him being thoroughly convinced and believing in the Patterson film, I don't think he's doing it for anything else than he actually believes in it. So, and I can understand the frustration that that others have with him. I can understand. I have frustration with MK as well. He has a bit of a problem following up on things and all that. So, John L. Johnson, he's a very intelligent guy. He seems like he knows what's going on. I just don't see the point of him going just attacking the guy or anybody else for that matter. I understand people think that MK Davis is like a hoaxer. I can see where you're coming from, but I don't think he's intentionally. I think he's so convinced. There's a difference. I know hoaxers. They don't believe in Bigfoot. They don't believe in any of this shit. You know what I mean? Some do, but they don't give a crap. The thing is, for the most part, they don't believe in any of this stuff. They think we're just all. Those of us who've had encounters and experiences, they think we're just batshit crazy and it's a big joke and they're just making fun of us, right? They're taking advantage of the situation. I don't see MK Davis really. he really, outside of some popularity, he has had a whole bunch of interviews, and I'm sure it probably feeds his ego. But I've talked to the guy, and I think he really believes that he's on to something. He's right. I was in his camp for quite a while, but after really weighing things out, I mean, as much as I might not like Mr. Johnson as far as his approach and his personal attacks, he seems to be, his argument is more persuasive at the end of the day. Let's put it that way. So, and I'm not here to take sides or anything. I just want to freaking truth about this stuff, right? That's all I want. But perspective, this is one of the things. And this goes back to this thing again about what we learned when it came to the CIA and their disguises and all that, and how for a long time their disguises weren't that effective up close. From a distance, they're pretty decent, you know what I mean? But once they got close, they had problems with it. So they worked on that technology in the 70s and the 80s. And now today we know that they have the technology to fool people. Close quarters. I mean, as much as you might not like George Bush Sr., and he's not around anymore, and he's a bit of a scoundrel and a self-serving, bit of a crook, right? The fact of the matter is, he wasn't no chump. You can't just end up being the CEO or the District of Columbia, the President of the United States, simply because you're solely a chump. I mean, it doesn't work that way, right? So if they fooled Bush with the technology now we're talking back in the 80s, late 80s, and actually we think about a lot of this strong evidence that even when Reagan was office, and most of the time he wasn't aware enough, so it was Bush Sr. running pretty much the government throughout most of the 80s. So it could have even been earlier than that. So I think you fool that dude who's been around the block a few times with their technology. There's no reason to think that 1967, with the technology they had back then, that they couldn't fooled people. You know what I mean? In cinemas, and those who, had their private showings and all that kind of stuff. It was, hey, listen, on all honesty, in the 19s, I remember watching it in the movies. That was in the 70s. It still was pretty damn persuasive back then. So if you don't know what you're looking at, if you don't have any, there's nothing to compare. I mean, how are you to know if someone's really faking that or not from the footage that we have? And the problem, and Nikki brought this up, and she's right. The new stuff, at first glance, it's like, wow, man, they're doing all this digital enhancement of this video, right? The problem is it's altering the actual original video, and so when you alter that, it no longer is the original video. No matter what you want to say, it's digitally enhanced. We talk about this CGI stuff all the time, right? A lot of issues with it, right? Got to watch out what's going on, especially AI and everything else. And so you're just like, shit, man, we're fucked. You know what? If we don't get a real recording of a real Sasquatch that is substantial, I mean, those of us, I feel for people like me because I'm walking in your footsteps. I've seen the damn fucking thing. Excuse my language, but I have seen something that at least looks like that, right? And it's just my word. There's nothing. It's not going to be any good for anything outside of me. And a few people have had similar experiences who can relate and say, "Yeah, I have similar experiences. I can see where you're coming from." I can't prove to you that I've seen Bigfoot, and it's 50 freaking years later. I mean, I have to be honest with you. That video is worthless. it is as worthless as the DNA test at this point. And I don't want to say it because that's the only thing we got. Now, that might have been, I mean, it might be a little harsh here, but I don't think so. I mean, even let's say the theories out there that Patty was taken out and all that. I mean, we're never going to know if it's true or not, right? The most persuasive argument in this whole thing is as upsetting as it is that it really was somebody in a suit, and it really was easy to fake. And if this long distance, there's no way you're going to, you're never going to know from the original footage. Maybe a few people with maybe the resources having access to the original film can 100% determine whether it's somebody in a suit or not. But the rest of us, we're screwed. We're just, once again, we're dependent upon the experts' opinions about it. Remember, experts' opinions. And no one has to convince the person that a squirrel's a squirrel at this point, right? Maybe when you're 5 years old, that might be the case. But by the time you're in high school, you've had enough biology classes to know that a squirrel's a squirrel, right? And when it comes to Sasquatch, there's been a ton of time, outrageous amount of time. And I know there's still a lot of open space, and maybe there still is a physical flesh and blood thing out there. Maybe the government really is hiding, and but it's all maybes, and this just like useless. It's just useless. All this maybe stuff, no, the speculation, and the end of the day is useless unless you want to use that stuff to exploit people and use it as a form of mind control, like they do with religion and with geopolitics and what you see on television and etc. right now on the internet. I mean, if we can't verify it, quantify it, do anything to it, just if all we got is that, we got nothing. And I know it sounds like a broken record, but it's worse than that at this point. It's worse than that. It's at the point, my personal opinion, that footage, that book, that piece of film, as disappointing as it's going to sound, and like my friend MK is not going to be happy with what I'm saying. But it's time to just throw that film out. It's just forget about it. It's not worth a damn. We need to move on in a different direction here. Because those of us who've actually seen Bigfoot and had our experiences, that film is actually causing a problem when you really think about it. It's actually getting in the way of moving forward ahead. If we just let go of that and just move forward, or, we could use it as historical data that 50 some years ago, right? That somebody maybe most likely didn't film a Bigfoot. Here's the thing. My brother lives in that area. He swears to God, him and his wife, they both swear that they seen a Sasquatch. They seen it. They said this. And I don't know, what am I supposed to do about that? What are the odds that two siblings, one in Ohio and another one in Northern California, would see something that looks like Bigfoot or a Sasquatch? I mean, the odds are that. I mean, it would be nice to have some reconciliation and to say, hey, listen, we weren't making it up. We're not lying. We actually saw something. Here you go. Here's some evidence to say, there really is something out there. But we don't have it. And holding on to that Patterson film, I think, is crippling any kind of progress. It doesn't matter if we believe in the PG film or not, or don't. We are still in the same place. That's right. That's right. So on the base, your belief in Bigfoot on your own encounters and someone else's encounters, you trust, yeah. But it's like, Nikki, we're at this point where I know I want more. I don't want to believe. Beliefs get us in so much trouble. I understand you start out with a belief, but if that belief doesn't turn into something that's solid and legit and, something that you can prove, well, I mean, it's no different than religion at this point. You know what I mean? I mean, what good is it? I mean, I guess in the early stages, it's maybe good. Maybe when you first have these encounters, it makes you. It's good to feel that and to know that other people had similar experiences. But the more you're into this, like I have been now for 7 years, and I'm nothing like Nikki, and as far as years in it, but I've been into it long enough to know that I've been hoaxed. I've literally had people where I'm sitting right now. I've had Rick Grimhack literally drive 2.5 hours. We should want to go back to that about the mileage, the driving the distance, to literally lie to my face and and to the people that we interviewed that he saw something that looked like a Bigfoot in his backyard when it was just him in a costume. And are they part? How do we deal with this? How do we say, listen, there's those of us who've seen a Bigfoot, but when it comes to the Patterson film and most of these films that we have, it's worthless. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it seriously at all. Don't if the smartest thing is just, honesty at this point. All of us would be better off just doing our own field research, going out there and finding things. I'm not knocking some of my friends who go out there in the field and do research, but as long as they're doing real research. There's a lot of you just film yourself tromping around the woods and pretending you're doing research. That's not research. And that's something we have to get honest about too. So did I show this one? This one, and then did I show Nikki's thing? So, here's another thing. The thing that bothers me, and I can understand because Wallace and all the stuff that was going on down there that they would have caused these guys to gravitate, but to drive literally 13 hours just to fake that, that's one thing that just on their own without some kind of incentive. Now, I can see how Bob was screwed by Roger Patterson. It sounds like Roger, this is just a history of screwing over people. He's one of these con artists. A good con artist, you know what they do? They'll get you to do stuff, give you your money, and with a smile on their face, knowing full well they're not going to pay your money back, and they know they're lying to you. And if you don't know anybody like that, all I got to say is you haven't been around. You need to get out there and live in the real world, because I know numerous people in personal life outside of Bigfoot that are that way. There's a lot of people out there. And that's the reason why you just can't trust anybody in this world, right? You just can't blindly trust anybody. And just because, they've become famous thanks to the Bigfoot community doesn't mean they're not scoundrels. But the thing is, 13-hour drive, that just seems, what was going on in this Yakima town? What was really going on? What else? There's got to be something else going on with that town. That's all I'm saying. To cause such a group of people to get together and have such influence to create this video, I'm just speculating, but the odds are there's something more going on in Yakima than meets the eye. That's all. What else is there? Oh, yeah, so then he was guaranteed $1,000, in which Roger Patterson stiffed him. And then I've listened to these other people and interviewing people and making claims that they paid Mrs. Patterson, $20,000 just to look at the video to do whatever they did with it. You know what I mean? And paying money just to see the video. And here's the thing too. You can't just, not only was Roger a scoundrel, but his father-in-law was a millionaire. So something doesn't make. If a guy's a millionaire and and we're talking way back then, a millionaire, that's a shitload of money. If you're a multimillionaire in the 1960s, you're a filthy rich dude. End of story. I remember I was in Louisville, Indiana. One of the first jobs I got. Well, first, I went to California after high school, took a one-way bus trip to California, worked for the California Conservation Corps, and as a forest firefighter. There was some weird shit going on in the woods back then. I noticed it, but I could never tell if it was the dude growing pot or if there might have been something like a Bigfoot, right? I wasn't even thinking about the Bigfoot stuff. I didn't even believe in it. So, and all the time when I was in a forest firefighter or when I was in the California Conservation Corps and all the other jobs you have outdoors, never saw a Bigfoot. So that's something to say. But, you know, to be a millionaire that's in the asphalt business is in the 1960s, it's not something to overlook. And that's your father-in-law, something to think about. But what I'm trying to say is, I don't think that Roger Patterson was just some simple scoundrel crook that didn't want to get work. I think that's too simplistic. I think there's something deeper going on, because there's plenty of us who don't want to work. There's plenty of us that are, you know, don't have much of a work ethic. All right. And they don't thinking about faking a Bigfoot. That's the last thing they're thinking about. There's something else going on here. I just want to say that. What else is there? I'm missing a whole bunch of things. This video is, I think it's worth watching. And, but, you know, for me, I had to swallow some crow. I had to, you know, say, shit, what am I going to, I watched the damn video, right? And I'm like, shit, I'm friends with M.K. Davis. I consider myself to be a friend of him. Although he's been acting weird lately. So I know he has health issues. So so I listened to these other guys, and I'm like, shit, MK, their argument is stronger than your argument. What do I do? Is this all just about a friendship, or are we out there? I mean, should I deny that where the evidence leads me to preserve a friendship? And do I really even have a friendship if I have to lie to have that friendship? Well, to me, that's not worth it. So it's not worth having a friendship with anybody that I have to lie or pretend or make up stuff. That's not a real friendship. Been around for 56 years. I know better than that. So. Yeah, so let's watch some more of that. Thanks for all the comments. And thanks for sticking it out. Because I know it's not the easiest thing to listen to me. Let's move on, you know. So let me see if we're in fourth. We have get my order here. Here we go.
Experts. The Russians were involved for a period of time in looking at this film. Yeah, you have to wonder, why would people be so terribly intrigued in a film like
muscle mass and that stuff? And I tried the suit on, and he showed me how he wanted me to walk. And of course, everybody say I walk that way anyway. But I went up and down the pasture there.
Experts. The Russians were involved for a period of time in looking at this film. Yeah, you have to wonder, why would people be so terribly intrigued in a film like this when their focus is solely upon 60 seconds of film strip and not upon the photographer himself?
I was sitting in my living room. It was the latter part of October, and on my television set came the picture of this Bigfoot walking through the forest, and the announcer said 2 cowboys were out in the national forest and just happened to have their camera with them and got this picture of Bigfoot. And I'm looking at him, holy cows, that's my gorilla suit. I had heard that he had rented a suit to use and had worked with the suit and decided that's not what he wanted to do. First of all, he wanted to make changes in it. Did not want it to look like a gorilla. He asked me when he was on the phone and he was buying the suit, he said, does it look like a real gorilla? And, no, it looks more like a Hollywood gorilla. He wanted also to be able to buy the suit so that he could make whatever changes he needed to make in it. For instance, he wanted to change it from a male to a female. I know that Roger did not know how to work with latex. However, I understood that he is a fine artist. I mean, he did some great cartoons and so forth. And he was a wood carver. So I believe that he carved whatever he was going to make and then formed it with leather. Now, what makes me, several reasons I believe that, is number one, Bob Hieronymus, who was wearing the suit, said, well, when I put on the mask, it smelled terrible. Number two, it would have been, did not understand the science of making the eyes in the mask so they matched the eyes of the person wearing the suit. When I sent the suit to Roger Patterson, I asked him, he asked me, when he called back, he said, well, you can see the eyes around the person wearing it. And I said, well, there's a stick of makeup in there, dark brown makeup. And you just put that around the eyes and it covers it up. But I believe that he cut out the face, formed this other face out of leather, put it in there, and then to cover up any of the blemishes, used the extra fur that he'd asked her to send him and covered up those. And if you take a real close look at the Bigfoot that he had, there's all this fur around the thing covering up the blemishes. Here is the unique thing. Bob Hieronymus, and I didn't know this until the first time I met him, has one glass eye. That glass eye is on his right-hand side. And according to Bob, just came out of this out of the clear blue sky, he said, Roger asked me to bring along an extra eye and keep an eye out for him. And he said, and we took the mask and pushed that eye and fastened it inside the mask. Now, when he turns his head, that's what you're seeing is the eye, which would have been impossible if he hadn't done that, because you wouldn't see an eye, because, again, they could not make the leather, so it was going to come right up against the eye. And that's when he also told me, he said the mask just smelled terrible. Roger Patterson had asked me on the telephone, on his second call, well, how do you cover up the zipper line? Now, that was a pretty good sized zipper was in there. We used the same size zipper that they use for a convertible top. It's a real heavy zipper. As a matter of fact, the people that put that in there, because it took a real heavy machine, that's what they did. They sewed convertible tops. So it was formed. I said, well, here's what you do. Just get a hairbrush, and you brush back over the fur all the way up the top, and you'll cover up that zipper completely. And that's what he did. But that butt crack fooled me for a minute. I tried to figure, boy, that's a big guy. But it wasn't Bob's butt. It was a pillow. When I saw the suit on television, I thought to myself, well, give this guy a couple weeks, and he'll come out and say, well, this is all Hoax. It was just. And then when I heard the amount of money that he was making, and the amount of money that he'd received to get the television, to sell the television rights for it, and it dawned on me, well, that's it. He's not going to step out into it. And I didn't want to say anything. Why would I want to say something? And all the costumes that we've come up with, that was a very minor thing. And it was a suit that I sold the suit, took the money, spent it, and I was on my way. Now this foot went over the top of whatever, and Patterson had several days to cut this and make it fit over the top of the wading boot. And as you step forward, you could move, it looks like the toes are moving, but the toes are not moving, they're just turning up. When I spoke to Patterson on the telephone, when he called back, he said, we'd like to build the shoulders up. So, well, this is the easiest way to do it. Now, these are shoulder pads from that period. Today's football shoulder pads are a little different than this, but this is what they were using in the 60s. And I said, go over to the high school and talk to the coach. I said, he'll have a pair of shoulder pads. He'll probably have a pair that's broken on it in somewhere, and he'll probably give them to you. Now, once you put on these shoulder pads, would you step over here, our model here, please, and put on this pair of shoulder pads. Now, you see what you're doing. You see how much you're raising the shoulder here? You're adding length with the gorilla hand. But you do not put the gorilla hand all the way on. What you're doing, let me see if I get you the one for this side so it's easier to shoot. Yeah, there we are. What you do is he puts the hand just inside right here. Now it goes down to a side, and you see where it's coming. Below the knee. Where does the arm bend? Still in the center. Still in the very center.
People need to realize that it's not just Roger Patterson in this Bigfoot film that forms the core of the Bigfoot movement. Because at the time that Roger Patterson was looking for Bigfoot, there were other key players in the whole search for Bigfoot. These include John Green, a famous Canadian Bigfooter, Rene DeHinden, who is also a Canadian, Grover Krantz, a Washington State University professor, and a number of other people who are looking for Bigfoot on their own and then communicating with each other as team members and partners. They're all looking for Bigfoot. This activity was all going on, and suddenly out of the blue comes Roger Patterson. He's unemployed, used to ride in rodeos for a period of time, would take on a job which he would keep for maybe a week or two and quit because he never wanted to work for anybody. Suddenly this Roger Patterson, kind of an upstart Bigfoot hunter, enters this scene, and he starts looking for Bigfoot, and he started looking for Bigfoot at about 1964. 3 years later, suddenly he manages to take a film of Bigfoot. You know, how did that happen? The Bigfoot researchers who had been looking for Bigfoot and trying to film it had never had sufficient evidence. And yet suddenly this young ex-rodeo writer from Yakima becomes a star overnight. Immediately, the other Bigfoot hunters support him, and the Bigfoot field takes off.
Doing my research into this film, it became clear to me that John Green, Rene DeHinden, Bob Titmus, and a guy from the U.S. Forest Service named Sylvester McCoy were all probably duped by both Patterson and Wallace. Having found that Green had corresponded with Titmus concerning the possibility of bringing a tracking dog into the Bluff Creek area on more than one occasion, I also obtained evidence from researcher Leroy Blevins in the form of a copy of a letter from Green to Titmus, which confirmed the dates they were there. Pilot Keith Chiazari, who has been mistaken for Bob Titmus on many occasions, flew Green, DeHinden, Dale Moffat, and Moffat's dog, White Lady, to the site on the 28th of August 1967 and flew them back to Canada on the 31st. During that time, Chiazari was seen many times on film walking the roads looking at the tracks while holding Rene DeHinden's shotgun. DeHinden shot the footage that has become known as the tracking dog film. The sad thing about this is that the tracks they're reviewing were almost certainly hoaxed by either Wallace or even Patterson. So Green and DeHinden became believers in the tracks and were also taken in by Patterson's film. Enter American National Enterprises, a film company, and its owner, Ron Olson. Olson was making a movie in the area at the time, and Roger Patterson was on Olson's payroll during the time when the Patterson-Gimlin film was made. And here's a picture of his cast. Do you recognize that guy up there with the long black hair? It's none other than Bob Gimlin. Do you smell a rat yet?
The Bigfoot movement has been sustained by this piece of film for 40.
Well, where do we go with all this? Jeez, White Lady the dog, huh? The thing that I want to focus on is that did I bother to get an image? Let's see. I'll show this for a little bit. So, yeah, let's see if I can find that image. I might not be able to find it. Find an image of a Patty swinging arms. So the biggest thing in the whole thing is it talks about how to make the arms look extended and longer. Well, this is a let's see if that's going to be good. This is MKA Davis's. Well, this is an enhanced one, so let's just look at this. This is not the best one, far from it. as far as to do this. So, anyways, this is MK Davis's images. And we're going to talk about this. So he talks about how they've extended to make this look bigger. And he showed, if don't put your hand all the way into the I guess the glove, if you will, the hand part of it. If you pay attention to some of the stuff that, and they'll talk about this in the movie too, but notice this section right here. Not this section, the arm, the real arm of the person in the costume. And then you have this big hands and gloves and big mitts. And they talked about how you could still get that bending of the elbow and still make it look like it's bigger than it actually is, right? The arms. I mean, this is disturbing to say this stuff. I mean, I don't want to be, I'm not feeling good about doing this. You know what I mean? I'm not happy about doing this, if that makes any sense. Because, well, I'm friends with MK Davis. So at least I'm sure after this, it probably won't be. Not that that's what I ever wanted, but I don't know if you see here. If you're an elite, you have access to Social Security bank account and make you. Well, that's the thing. Here's Roger Patterson's father-in-law was a millionaire who he had a second home that he gave to the Pattersons, Roger and his wife. Even though he might have not wanted to work and he was a lazy bum, as they say, he married up, right? So, I mean, that's nothing to just ignore. I mean, regardless if he's a lazy bum or not, right? The fact of the matter is, he married up and he's a millionaire. And it's no joke. I mean, you and I could dream about being in that situation. The average person is difficult to extract the private straw man money without harvest consequences. And the elites have Satan's. Yeah, I agree with you. Bunch of scumbags. It's okay to call a spade a spade. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. For those, I mean, I've been loyal to MK for years. So, I mean, for me to do what I'm doing, I'm not just doing this to be spiteful and far from it. I mean, the evidence is where it's at. So, if you pay attention to this arm, though, and you see these images, you can see where the real arm is. And then they got this supposedly these muscles. That's not muscles. That's not muscles at all. Apparently, these boobs, it was Roger Patterson's idea to put the boobs on. So why not? Pretty clever, I think. It seems like he's a pretty clever guy to get all these people involved. And I keep losing track of where I'm supposed to be. I think it was 5 or 6. So let's watch more of that. But the thing is about the arms. The foot thing, I don't know, man. That's just, I don't know about that. But, the arms is pretty, what they said, was it Philip Morris? Is that what his name is? If I got his name right. What he said, his suggestion of what he said about their arms and the shoulder pads. Well, that makes sense. Also, probably the people that claim that Patty was 7 foot, highly improbable. And Bob, he's got a big head. Have you noticed that? Bob Hieronymus, he's kind of a big head. So, but then there's that magical glass eye that he used too, right? So that's something to think about. Remember, this image too is not reliable as much as I want it to be. This has been digitally enhanced. This has been blown up. This has been touched up. So I think it's worthless as far as evidence goes. And I don't feel happy about saying that. When you search for the truth, you have to go where the roads lead. I know, and it's that thing is Diesel. It's constant disappointment. It's like, it's this place. Honestly, sometimes I wonder if this place is nothing but it. You know, people laugh about conspiracy theories and calm theories. If you don't think the conspiracies are not going on all around us on a constant basis, you haven't been around, or you've just been in denial. I've heard that the female Sasquatch are pregnant, and they tend to stay in the realm longer. There's no way of knowing that, Sovereign. I mean, you heard that. I mean, listen, we've had people on my show. How many have now said that Sasquatch, well, one says they have a group of a fleet of flying saucers, and all of a sudden, you know, they've seen them in flying saucers. I mean, there's no way to know any of it. Can't take anything. Got to go. Have a good night. Hey, okay, if you're still there, thanks, Nick. Thanks for showing up. What about the other alternative backstories or recent popped up about Patty? Supposedly there's more. Yeah, I was saying that. And actually, you know what? One of the reasons why I ended up doing this, because I was working on going to do a video in support of the fact, well, at least in quotes, fact, that there was more than just one Patty. But the more I looked into it, the more I realized there ain't no evidence for more than one Patty or another Sasquatch. None whatsoever. It's more hearsay. And, you know, at some point, one has to be critically honest about things. Do some critical thinking, say, you know what? Could be or could not be. Where's that pendulum? Where's the swing? Where's the barometer being that there was more than one or not? Well, there's no evidence that there's even one, let alone more than one. And I don't like saying that. I really don't like saying that. But I had to do this because, not because I'm trying to be a jerk, cause people problems. It's because I need to do it to relieve myself of any of that stuff. That's why I said I don't have any conclusions. I'm not losing my top over at Lord of O.R.D. Cool. I wasn't accusing you of that. So if you think I am, well, maybe I am. You know what I mean? It is. I have emotional investments in this stuff. I've seen the thing. M.K. Davis is a friend of mine. I consider it to be. I hope he still is. And there's a lot of people in the Bigfoot community I know are going to be very upset with me. Bigfoot got some nice, yeah, you know, that's one thing we can say is Bigfoot, if this is true, they got a boob job. A boob job that most women wish they could get, right? So let's go to the next
5 years. And it's amazing to me that the Bigfoot community, as it calls itself, never stopped to go back and ask the right questions. Vilma Radford actually signed a contract and loaned Roger Patterson $700 with interest for him to specifically, as he told her, to go to California and make a movie about Bigfoot.
Well, we're here today to have you talk a little bit about Roger Patterson and your encounter with him. Yeah, you've told me over and over again in many interviews all the details of what happened, but let's see if we can put this together in 5 or 10 minutes so people can understand what that encounter was all about. So here he comes in, and he spent a number of hours with you, if I remember.
Yes.
Basically giving you a pitch. Here's the evidence. Here's photographs of big footprints. I've got a book. I know there's a Bigfoot down in California, and I'm looking for someone to help me out, basically. Wasn't that the pitch?
Yeah, he needed money to rent the camera, is what he told us.
To rent a
now,
camera.
whether he rented that camera or not, later found out Mr. Patterson did rent a camera, but he sold it.
So we know that he signed that book and gave it to you. Secondly, we have the contract, of course, and there's his signature on the contract. Yep. Now, this contract, if I recall, is a contract you actually typed up, I believe. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Had witnesses, too.
Right. I think there were neighbors who witnessed this.
That's right. They're both gone now. They're dead and gone.
Right.
So are a lot of other people.
Now, Patterson came back, I think, the next day after he gave the pitch. When he left that evening, you typed up the contract. He came over in the morning, and that's where he signed the contract, and you actually gave him this money. So that's an interesting fact we need to point out. Jerry Merritt knew that you had this accident because, of course, you were friends with Jerry Merritt.
That's right.
Because he was helping to record the Velvet Illusions music. That was the band that your son was a member of, in which your husband or ex-husband helped build and promote and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So we know that there's a connection between Jerry Merritt and Roger Patterson. And we know Merritt, of course, introduced Roger to you. Now, during that time in Hollywood, do you remember seeing Roger Patterson at all?
No. Never came to see us when we were there.
However, he was down there, interestingly, in mid to late October through parts of November with Al Diatley, who was his brother-in-law, and also Bob Gimlin, setting up a company called Bigfoot Enterprises. So they may not have been that far away from you, actually, there in Hollywood, would they?
No.
So you remember your husband telling you that Jack Oliphant told your husband,
"Oh, yes,
you're getting took." That is by Roger Patterson.
Well, he told him right in front of me, so.
Oh, you were right there?
Yes,
okay.
I was there.
Okay, so you heard that.
Yeah.
Now, Jack Oliphant was going to sue Al Diatley, Roger Patterson, and Bob Gimlin. Do you have any idea what that lawsuit was all about that he wanted to file against those gentlemen?
Well, I think it involved, it involved something about publicity that he got from them that he had not actually got from them, but he named them. I think that's what it was about.
Okay, so perhaps Jack Oliphant, out of his own pocket, provided free publicity, perhaps buying advertising or setting up some sort of promotional event, but he never got paid for it.
Now, also, this involves a Canadian gentleman who's now dead also, who I saw several times. And he also was involved.
Now, you're talking about Rene DeHinden, is that right?
That's right.
And he came to your house, I think you told me?
That's right. He was here more than one time. He was here once with his son.
He came to the house because probably he came across some information that you had filed a lawsuit against Patterson.
That's right.
So what was the purpose of him coming?
What he was trying to do, get as many shares as he could.
DeHinden was trying to buy up from people who had some claim upon Patterson's profits their share, so to speak, and he eventually bought from you your share.
He bought the share with $100.
Oh, $100.
All right. $100, and with the promise that the minute he made any money on the Bigfoot, he would reimburse me.
Did he ever reimburse you?
No.
Never did?
No.
It's kind of like Patterson, isn't he? Or wasn't he? Rene DeHinden.
Well, I look at it this way. Money does strange things to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There is no human being alive that can name where the Bigfoot is and go right back there and found him. If he was, we'd have heard about it by now.
He was selling shares, if you will, in this scheme of his, this operation of his. So she wasn't the only one probably loaning him money. But she loaned her a considerable sum, and she waited and she waited to be repaid. He was going to have a film. Now, she learned eventually he did have a film, this famous 60-second film. Yet no money was paid back to her. But we know from talking to other principals in this scheme that the film was soon thereafter, after October, hitting the roads and being promoted and shown in theaters all across the United States. We have to question whether the film was even shot on October the 20th. That's the importance of knowing about Kodachrome film at that time. The film supposedly was, the story goes, mailed to Yakima, to the U.S. Postal Service, to Al Diatley, another player in this entire story. He has no memory as to receiving the film. He hasn't denied that he had it processed, that he himself had it processed, but he has no memory whatsoever of where he would have sent it. And I find that pretty amazing, because he is the man who 2 days after the film was shot, supposedly on October 20th, on October 22nd, he was showing it on a projector in the basement of his home in Yakima with Roger Patterson in attendance, and along with John Green and Renee DeHenden and some other famous Bigfoot people.
I get a lot of bad emails from people. Everything that I find is not like I just look at it. I have other people look at it as well and give me their input on what they see. If you watch the film, and if you even look at the stills, you'll see there's actually a scene that runs from the buttocks all the way up through the hip and around to the front. When the creature walks, you can see part where the leg muscle is, where they claim it was a herniated muscle. You can see it all just presses up together, like your pants be folded together. When the arm comes back, you'll see this whole section up here folds together and gives you a smaller outline of an arm. Okay, you can even see the outlines of the shoulder pads that they have underneath there. When the creature walks, there's no separation in the buttocks. Buttocks sways from left to right, left to right, left to right when the feet's in motions. But when the right leg comes down, the left buttock should go up. It should have a different separation, and there's really no separation, even though they claim there's separation in it. But when you actually watch the film, you'll see it just moves left to right, left to right, left to right. That's it. There's no separation whatsoever.
Well, it's interesting, the role of John Green and Renee DeHenden specifically in all of this, because within 2 days of the film being shot, if it were shot on October 20th, and we don't believe that anymore, they end up in Yakima, Washington. They're in the basement of Diatley's home, who financed Roger's expeditions, as he called them. They're there looking at this film. And you're going, well, did Roger know John Green? And you go, well, yeah, he did. Roger Patterson visited John Green in 1964 in order to, in order to borrow news stories and information from John Green to put into his book that Patterson ultimately wrote called Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist? So Green knew who he was. And Patterson made the contact to get something out of Green. Now, Renee DeHenden knew John Green. They lived close by in Canada, and they both were interested in reports of Bigfoot in the Bluff Creek area, where the film was shot, and often travel there together or separately looking into the subject. In that area, suddenly Roger Patterson shows up. He found in 1964, now I don't know if it was before he met John Green or after, but...
Okay. Let's see a couple of these things. Let's go back here a little bit. So Sovereign Cosmic Wildman, if you're still around, says, what about the ponytail observation on Patty, highlighted in one of David Pilati's videos? Which, by the way, I have a video on that, and I promoted that, and because of M.K. Davis, and but it doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean there's not something here that's like a ponytail or something. But if you kind of see which one's, because this is the digitally enhanced one, right? Or this artist friend, that's what he did. So, but this is we can't really tell one way or the other. What does make sense too, right? So if you have the shoulder pads right here, And then if you have a mask that's put on, so remember, the mask is separate from the bodysuit, right? So you put that mask on, then you're going to have somewhere of blending the two areas in. Does that make sense? In other words, you're going to have to try to hide as much as possible. This is just common sense. You don't even need anybody, an expert, to tell you. That's just common sense. It's going to say, if there is a mask, a headpiece, and you're going to be able to tie it in with the bodysuit, right? And so the most logical thing to do is to have, so this is the headpiece, and then have longer hair, maybe tape sewed on, whatever, to blend in and hide the inconsistencies, right? And of course, this image is not solely about the ponytail. This is from MK. And he talks about the ear, which is really weird. The ear, if you really look at it, the ear's all screwed up. This whole stuff doesn't make any sense. There's the glass eye. Patty has, and the weird mouth. I'm speculating at this point, but if I were to make the mask or the suit, the headpiece would definitely have long hair on it to cover and blend in with the shoulders, right? And that'd also give us that illusion of having that, the triceps, or not the triceps, what do they call that? Trapeze. The shoulder blades, the shoulders, give it that kind of, that illusion of it, the shoulders tying into the skull there that they always talk about, right? You could easily do that just by, here's your mask, there's your head piece, and you have this long hair, and it just blends in there. And so to make it easier to hide any kind of inconsistencies, anatomical inconsistencies, you could have that. And you say, oh yeah, that's just trapeze is what it is, going up there into that. And what, which I hate to say, Henry Friend was only, I don't trust him, man. I interviewed him. I don't trust anything that guy said, man. That guy is clearly, I wouldn't trust a dude. He gets up to you guys. But the ear doesn't make any sense either, right? And anatomically, it doesn't make any freaking sense. Unless it was a mask. Unless it was a headpiece. Because it doesn't line up properly at all. I mean, there's the ear, right? The ear is like almost on the back of its head. Just pay attention to your ears and where they're more located in much closer to the eyes and more center, if you will. Normal Bigfoot video would have been covered up, not pushed like the Patterson film was. I agree with you. The odds are, if I was the dude in charge, say if I was one of the dudes in charge, right? I'm running this country in North America, and there actually is these things we're running around. I remember telling Nikki this as well. I would take them out. And you know why I take them out? Because I have responsibility to families and children and communities and to the country and to businesses and to a whole bunch of other things. And so that's going to override my empathy or sympathy for Sasquatch. It just is. It's just the way it's going to be, or else I ain't going to have a job. If people find out that, hey, I'm more concerned about this thing called Bigfoot than people around, the children, you know what I mean? And I don't do something about it, and knowing that there's businesses out there, not only lumber companies, but a whole bunch of other businesses out there that don't, and there's a whole bunch of people, it doesn't even matter about the business, there's a whole bunch of people that would not want this what, you and I, because we're interested in this, we'd be like, this is cool, man. They finally found a Bigfoot. The average person in North America or in this world, if they found out that there really was these things running around, they'd be going like, what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Why aren't these things in cages? Or why aren't they taken out? I mean, that's humanity. That's our history. Anything that's even a threat to us, they get taken out. End of story. There is no questioning. There is no debating about it. Sure, you can make some mythology about it and glorify it and make all sorts of things out of it. But the truth of the matter is, if you're responsible and you care about other people, you care about fellow human beings, you know what I mean? Even though these are type of people, guess what? Just like it happens every other time, the odd man out, the person is not part of the tribe or the empire, they're going to be expendable. They're going to get rid of something like this. So I'm not saying there's not a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I'm not saying that at all. But it's clear that, look at the butt. And if you haven't looked at the butt yet, I think we've talked about it. We'll talk about, it's a pillow. Once somebody points it out, it's as clear as day that there's a pillow. The butt doesn't make any sense. I know MK shows some images of the buttocks in a different angle that makes it look different, but right there, that butt don't make sense at all unless it's a pillow. And then you talk about just anatomically, some of the things that are going on here. This is not a good image for it. There's nothing about this arm. It's a perfect example of this. None of that makes any sense. Unless there's a guy in a suit. I don't know about you. If you lived in California, I have. It gets really, really warm. It gets really warm. Oh yeah, a Southern Cosmic. Wow, man, he lives in Southern California. Can you imagine him walking around in that all day long? If you were a real Sasquatch. So, and I broke down. There's some things going on in that video, but they're supposedly that's what the backstory is entitled. They purportedly killed all the others. I know. I studied it. I was going to do a video on it. I really was going to do it. I was believing in it because my experience with stuff, and I know how deceptive people are. How many times have I been deceived? Just listen to Roger Patterson stealing people's money, not paying it back. Yeah, you think about it, there was actually no reason for that man to do that. That's part of the problem too in this whole story. That's a red flag about the story. The guy had a millionaire father-in-law. Plus he was making money off this movies. And he didn't pay back. He stole everybody's money. Now, mind you, there's a lot of, I know several dudes that operate just like that, right? They have absolutely no problem robbing you blind, cheating on you with your wife, and selling your children in the So yeah, there's a lot of scoundrels out there, right? But when you really honestly look at the circumstances, the totality of this, the odds are in favor that this was a hoax, that this was fake, which really pisses me off, to be honest with you, because I've seen Bigfoot. I've had encounters with things that look like Bigfoot. And there's a lot of people that are serious in their investigations and figuring out what the hell's going on in the woods. And they have one thing. It's not just one. It's constantly being slapped in the face. It's like Diesel. You might be able to relate with this, but it's like you feel like you're just on your own. You literally are an island. to yourself. You're just on your own. It's like who can you trust? And when you look at the butt, and we're going to talk about that, it clearly is a pillow. There's no sense for that kind of butt. So, and nature-wise, why the hell would you have a butt like that? And, you know, after doing everything that I've done, and being part of, at least on the fringes of the Bigfootery, because I learned real fast back in 2017 that there wasn't too many people out there that I was going to be able to trust. And especially those who are established, those who are have a name floating out there. They're a part of the circuit. You know what I mean? They're the people with thousands upon thousands of subscribers, and there's just so many weird things. There's so much weirdness going on in the Bigfoot community. And I think it's easier for a guy like me to see that, because I've resigned it way back when to not be part of it, but always be on the fringes. This is not out of any kind of vengefulness or trying to get revenge or to, one up everybody. I mean, I learned real fast that I was not going to be able to figure out the truth of what I went through by listening to the Wes Germers of the world or the Steve Isdals of the world. I'm not even necessarily knocking them. I mean, but here's the part of the problem with the Bigfoot community. Instead of serious in the scientific research, which is a rarity in the Bigfoot community, if we're honest about it, it's an awful lot of people whose sole interest is to create a following. And when you talk to them, especially behind the scenes, and there's numerous of these guys that talk this way, they're more focused about money, and they're all focusing on to make a living doing this. Well, it's going to be real fast. You're going to make a decision real fast doing this stuff. Are you doing this because you have passion for it? You want to know the truth about things? You're serious in your investigation? You want to try to figure this out seriously? Or it's about making a name for yourself. And it's real. I mean, our egos are so fragile. All of us have this problem, right? You get, and I've had thousands of subs before. I have. I got taken down on the 6th of January, 2021. And ever since then, but then again, I also have a different approach about things too after that. Because being censored and all that, it just was hopeless. But even when I did have thousands of it, it never was about the money. It was always about my search for the truth and sharing my journey with people and trying to best my. It never was about money. I never made enough money. Even on a good year doing this, it was just enough money pretty much to pay for the internet. And that's about it. Honestly, when it comes to the internet and some of the electrical bill or something like that, it's to pay for the computer shit, right? Outside of that, they weigh no money in this, none. So I'm just losing track here. So, okay, let's go here. So, Bigfoot got booty. That's right. Cardassian. I wonder if that's where they got the whole idea. I know. True. I know. We got a carry cross, so to speak. It's true. I think so. They made it that way. It shouldn't be this way at all. But I think part of the problem, Diesel, from my observation, my own personal experience, to go down this path, it's going to take you out of mainstream science and the parameters of mainstream science. And I don't think they like that. I don't think they like the fact that we're dealing with stuff that they don't have any ability to control. There are answers to this, yes. They just have to trust people telling you. And these beings can do is next level. Legendary tactics seem insane. Well, there's something definitely, we call them today interdimensionals, best in the past, ghost-like in nature. I remember this is all doctored up, so we're going to now see what more of the real image looks like. So I think we got did I play this one? I always get lost. Let's see if
Roger Patterson said he found a Bigfoot print in Bluff Creek, and he made a cast of it. So here is Roger Patterson in communication with John Green and Renee DeHenden. Within months of this film being shot, suddenly John Green wants to get a copy of it. Renee DeHenden wants to get a copy of it, and they paid money to have it. I think they were motivated to make money out of it and to promote their own projects, Bigfoot projects. John Green was a well-known Bigfoot writer at that time and soon thereafter, and sold a lot of books and made a lot of money, my understanding is. Renee DeHenden saw that there was money in that film, and he wanted to use it to promote himself as well in his efforts. In fact, he took it all the way to Russia to have it analyzed, to establish its scientific veracity and truthfulness. I think pure and simple, John Green, Renee DeHenden made certain that they associated themselves with the film in order to promote their own works, meaning books, lectures, whatever they could produce to make money. Money-making operation. Aldi Atlee, Roger's brother-in-law, told me that he found, frankly, Roger Patterson a nuisance. Because Roger Patterson, being broke, would always come up to his rich brother-in-law. Aldi Atlee owned Superior Asphalt Company and took a small operation and made it into a multi-million-dollar concern and made his wealth primarily that way. But he knew Roger Patterson was a nuisance and would give him handouts. But he also saw that Roger Patterson was onto something potentially big, Bigfoot. So Aldi Atlee helped finance Roger Patterson, certainly on his trip to Northern California. We have that stated many times over. Because Aldi Atlee saw money as well, just like John Green and Renee DeHenden. And he made a lot of money, Aldi Atlee. He told me that he took off time from his company for an entire winter to go on the road with a film, helped establish theater venues for it, accompanied Roger Patterson in the field, and in fact made so much money at one particular theater in Oregon that Aldi Atlee and Roger Patterson had a trash can full of money. Patty Patterson is an interesting equation, if you will, or component of the equation of the Patterson film. Very little is known about her publicly. It's always Roger Patterson, Bigfoot hunter, famous adventurer. But he was married. He had children. He has children. 2 sons and a daughter. And Patterson died, left the film to his wife, but very little's been written about her. People tend to not even care to write about her. Why don't they know about her role in this, if she had any role at all? Now, according to Bob Hieronymus put on this Bigfoot suit on Roger Patterson's property, and he remembers looking at the kitchen window that faced the backyard of the property, and there was Patty Patterson looking out the window at him, Bob Hieronymus, in the Bigfoot suit, along with Bob Gimlin present and Roger Patterson. Or certainly Roger Patterson was there. It'd be nice to interview Patty Patterson. Was she there? What did she see? Does she deny the fact that she saw Bob Hieronymus in a Bigfoot suit? She's never denied it. She doesn't give interviews like Bob Gimlin. Why is that? Patty Patterson makes money off the Bigfoot film, pure and simple. Who knows how much money she's made since Roger Patterson died. It's been used in countless documentaries. Let's say that she charges $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 a shot for exclusive rights to the film for a particular use. Let's say she's done that 20 times. Has she made hundreds of thousands, $500,000, $1 million off of this film? And yet, she never gives interviews as well. Just like Bob Gimlin, she's in the background. She quietly lives in Yakima, and she's waiting for the phone call to come in from an interested television producer or other interested concern who wants to buy rights to that film. All the people I called who knew of Roger Patterson as a neighbor, watched what he did in the Yakima Valley, all consistently told me that Roger Patterson was a shady, kind of no-good guy, okay? He took advantage of people, he stole from them, he used them, he dumped them, he went on. But when you bring up that subject to the founding fathers of Bigfoot, oh, that's all irrelevant. The honesty and integrity of the photographer of Bigfoot has absolutely nothing to do with this film. These people, the founding fathers, if you will, of Bigfoot, and this also includes a Gimlin and a Patty Patterson, protect the film as much as they do because it provides them income, it provides them publicity, it provides them a certain degree of notoriety, and if they don't have that Bigfoot film as their preeminent piece of evidence, they're nothing. The Bigfoot subject for these founding fathers was a money-making operation from the beginning. They're all either dying or have died or very old people. And they've made a lot of money during their adult lifetime. I did everything I could that I could with Bob Gimlin, because Bob Gimlin would not really give me a personal, formal, face-to-face interview. I did get a comment from him. But Bob Gimlin is a sort of smooth-talking gentleman. He's often described as being just a nice man, okay? A perfect witness to a Bigfoot in which the center of the Bigfoot film experience is really Roger Patterson. Bob Gimlin was there to say, yeah, I saw it too. I was there. And he's maintained his statement that way for 45 years. But he never gives an interview to anyone who has some hard questions to ask him about the film and his involvement in it. He'll give all the interviews he wants to Bigfoot believers, those people who believe and worship the film, but he won't talk to skeptics. Even neutral skeptics. You know, a reporter that knows nothing about the subject and simply wants to meet him and talk to him. He will not do that. He'll slam the door in your face. Here is a copy of a warrant of arrest for Roger Patterson. Roger Patterson rented a camera from Shepard's Camera Shop in Yakima and never returned it. Camera Shop contacted him constantly asking for the camera back. He never provided it. So, county sheriff went out and arrested him. Now, I don't know if they put him in handcuffs, but he was arraigned in court, and there was a hearing about this theft. He apparently had the camera for some time. You would think, though, after he shot the film, he would have brought it back. Here we have a very curious drawing. It portrays a Bigfoot, which interestingly has breasts, similar to what is observable on Roger Patterson's Bigfoot that shot on film in Bluff Creek. Roger Patterson had access to this photograph, to this drawing, because Patterson visited John Green in Canada in 1964. John Green was collecting many stories. In fact, he had collected the William Rose story. And so I think we can assume fairly that Roger Patterson knew the story of William Rowe, had access to this drawing, or certainly had access to the written story about a female Bigfoot. This is a photograph of the actual truck that was used by Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. Bob Gimlin owned this when they drove down to Bluff Creek, California, and spent several days down there looking for Bigfoot. What's interesting about this photograph is that it does show a compartment up here. And I had never seen this truck or a photograph of this truck when I interviewed Bob Hieronymus. But Bob Hieronymus told me that he remembers sleeping that first night he arrived in Bluff Creek, and he had met Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin at a campsite. He remembers sleeping in this little wooden alcove here at on the front of the truck.
So now you've seen the film, touted to be evidence of an unknown primate. You've met Ray Wallace, the man responsible for founding the...
Okay, so a couple things. I kept on saying that Roger Patterson's father-in-law is a millionaire. It's his brother-in-law, you know. But his father-in-law still gave him the house. That he had at least 2 houses, and they gave one to Roger and his wife. So there's a correction about that. We have about 12 minutes, maybe that left, 11 something minutes left of the video. And yeah, let's just finish it up here. So thanks for those who are sticking it out and those who listen to this. So it's not easy to do this all by yourself. It's nice to, it'd be nice to have someone talking to, but when you're doing this all by yourself, it's easy to forget stuff. So anyways, at least I try to correct my mistake. But that was going here.
The myth. Roger Patterson, who took advantage of the myth, and Bob Gimlin, the all but silent partner. You've seen the tracks Patterson collected and their resemblance to known fakes. You've seen testimony from Philip Morris and Bob Hieronymus, and from those who saw the suit after the fact. You've met the investigative reporter and a duped investor in Patterson's scheme. All we can do is show you the evidence and encourage you to see the facts as we present them. But there are some of you who will never let go of the belief that this film was real, despite seeing its falsehoods displayed before your eyes. That is, of course, your decision. But remember, belief in something doesn't make it real.
There's nothing in Bob Hieronymus' background or his family background that indicates at all that he has any sort of shady characteristics. Contrast that with Roger Patterson, and he had all the shady characteristics in the world. He absolutely refused to work for a living. Now, part of that I can understand in that he had cancer. He had it in different phases of development and remission. So it might have been difficult to work. Yet he told one of his brothers, Les Patterson, I am never going to work for anybody. And he said that after he worked for a day or two at an auto parts warehouse. He said, that's it, I'm not working for anybody. So Roger Patterson did not want to work for a living in any conventional standard sense that we understand. Punching the clock from 9 to 5, working 40 hours plus a week at a job. He didn't want to do it, he refused to do it. He was supported by his wife's his father-in-law, Willis Mondor, was provided a house free by Willis Mondor that he could live in because Willis Mondor knew that his son-in-law didn't have a job and wasn't going to work for a living. Friends of the Pattersons would often bring them groceries because they had no money. Patterson published a book called Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist? We have evidence that he committed mail fraud. This is from the lips of Renee DeHinden, no longer with us, but Renee DeHinden had a copy of the Patterson film. And I interviewed Renee DeHinden, and he said to me he committed mail fraud. People would send in checks to buy his book, Patterson's book. Patterson simply would cash the checks and never send them a book. So he committed mail fraud. Checks bounced constantly. There was nothing in the bank, and yet he and his wife were writing checks. They had no money. Roger Patterson would often use telephones of his neighbors to make long-distance phone calls. I suppose he was trying to find someone to help promote his film, and would rack up hundreds of dollars of bills for phone calls and never pay them. Never pay his neighbor back. There's countless other examples in my book, The Making of Bigfoot, that shows that Roger Patterson was a chronically willfully unemployed individual who did not want to make an honest living, who lived off others, who cheated others, and who lied and was also arrested for stealing the very camera that he used to film the Bigfoot in Northern California. Now contrast that with Bob Hieronymus, like I mentioned earlier. It's like night and day. You have one man who's honest and hardworking and a responsible citizen. You have another one that's irresponsible, and he certainly didn't want to work for a living, but he wanted to make, as he said, $1 million. It's interesting that, when I talked to John Green, Renee DeHinden, Peter Byrne, they immediately were defensive. You're out for no good, Greg. There's no need to write about Roger Patterson. It's all about the film. So what if Roger Patterson stole and lied and schemed? It's all about the film. It's all about the film. There has to be a Bigfoot in the film. Why did these people protect Roger Patterson's character, in essence? No one, you see, Patterson was a con man. He was a thief. He was a liar. These are indisputable facts.
Jerry brought Patterson here and introduced us, and then he took off, and we talked to Patterson quite extensively. But what he told us was not the truth. He presented me a book, or us, I should say, a book, a Bigfoot and the footprints and all that sort of thing, pictures. We discussed it, and then we loaned him the money that he wanted, which he said he had to have for a camera. He told me, or told us, that he was going to get Bigfoot. Now, I have a question to ask in the middle of this. How did he know Bigfoot was there and nobody else knew it was there? How come in all these years they've never found another Bigfoot down there? How come with all our technology, with the planes and everything else that we can spot things with, have we not located Bigfoot? Because he wasn't real.
We're gonna make fake Bigfoot prints. Just run down this middle of the snow here,
like
where it's all clear.
Like jump?
Yeah, jump.
Go.
Yeah, when you're ready. Yeah. Now let's see the tracks that you started with. Man, that's a pretty long stride you got there, man. There's another one. Let's see what the stride is. Go from the tip of the toes.
This one?
Yeah, just the tip of the toes. Right there. Okay, to the heel. That's a 64-inch strive, man. Yeah, but see, look at my strive next to yours. Okay. Well, look at your strive right there, man. So yeah, it's easy to make Bigfoot prints. Start right here and go it this way on the slope side to see how you do it. See what your stride will be then.
What?
Yeah, start right here, run down that way, down the hillside.
On the hillside?
Yeah, right, just straight down this, right here. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, here's one print. Here's another print. Now let's see how your strive is here. Hold it right here on this toe here. That time you went 67. Jeez, oh Pete.
I got long legs.
Okay, so which one? It's Greg Long, who's the primary. He's the investigator and the one who wrote the book, The Making of Bigfoot. That they did all the interviewing and all that, and did all that investigative work. There is a interview of him, and I don't think it was originally in 2022, but I can't remember when the original. Because I remember hearing this video, like the interview 7 years ago. So, in the making, the Bigfoot Patterson film hoax, I think. Let's see what happened. Oh, it's just solved. Can't really. I'm gonna play that while I'm talking. Can't hear it though. So the problem with all this is, you know, here's the dilemma that we all have, right? We don't know who to trust. But you know, the thing is, after what's it going to be? It's going to be freaking 60 years and 3 years. What was it? 1967. Yeah. So in 3 years, they're going to be 60 years and still nothing outside of this film. So. And I just personally think it's time to let it go and just be honest about it. It's been 60 freaking years. And there's nothing since. And it's clearly, they had the technology back then for the suits. The argument that they didn't have the technology back then is a flat out lie. And there is a technology between the government, the Laurel Canyon, the Hollywood, different alphabet agencies, the CIA. They have been working on it for quite a long time. This video came out in 1967 during the middle of a terrible time in the United States. A lot of unrest thanks to the war, the Vietnam War. I can see as that be something that would be advantageous to have something like this and a whole bunch of other distractions out there. We know there's ample evidence that Laurel Canyon they generated a whole bunch of the anti-war music, not just, and that's down in LA, whereas, of course, with San Francisco, they had the hippie movement going on. All this stuff, there's all sorts of shit going on. There was riots going on, and it was a tumultuous decade. So between, which I know most people don't want to hear, but if you look into it, the faking of the moon landing and stuff like this, it would make a lot of sense that there'd be more than just these guys. This is part of the problem. What I see of the documentary we just watched, it's a very cursory, superficial level of just proving that it's a hoax. But the details of like who really was involved with that, I think there was a hell of a lot more going on than just a half a dozen people and characters from Yakima that fooled the whole world. Now, I think there's a lot more going on, and I could see why they would end up doing it, making it public, having it in theaters. And it's like Diesel said earlier, if it was real, I doubt it in a million years that they would have ever given any real footage of something like this to the public. Too many things to risk. It also says this about this stuff. It says, first, it's ridicule. This is revealing the truth, right? Exposing the there's cognitive dissonance, and when you reveal the truth, the people that strongly hold in these beliefs, right? But they're beliefs based on nothing, right? So what happens when you first bring up this stuff, you're ridiculed, right? Then you're violently opposed, and then third, it is accepted as self-evident. And see, this is the crap videos. I mean, the crap demonstration, right? I mean, this is the thing. It's like, why? They had the technology back then. They definitely had the technology by the time they made this video, and these crap suits. And they definitely could have done a better job than just a little short, a few seconds here or there, a guy putting a crappy suit on, right? Why not use the same type of a film? This is back in 1967, right? And why not then, I think, compare it with more modern film at a distance, obviously recreating exactly what Bluff Creek looked like freaking 50 years ago or 40 years ago, depending on when these videos were made. It's impossible. There's too much change to go on. But you get a good idea. You get some idea at the distance and really film it that way. So that's one of the big red flag about the whole thing too. And this is part of the problem, see? If the guys are serious about actually exposing the hoax for what it really was, why didn't they just replicate it the best they could? No replication. Huge red flag. I'm not saying that the Patterson film isn't a hoax, but what I'm saying, the guys who are trying to attempt to prove that it's a hoax did a shitty job. And of course, what they did is they went after the scoundrel, Roger Patterson, and I'm sure he was a scoundrel, along with all the other people involved in this, and anybody else who doesn't have a conscience, and it doesn't bother them to lie, deceive you, and to manipulate you for a buck. By the way, you know who else does that? Pastors and used car salesmen and a whole bunch of people on the internet with their YouTube channels who are doing stuff simply to feed their egos, make them feel them self-importance, or even the delusion, the dream of making a living off this stuff, right? It would just suck ass and kiss ass to everybody that maybe someday I could be in the in crowd making money in the name of Bigfoot. And there's tons of people like that. That's part of the problem with this whole scenario. There's too many people not seriously interested in the truth, more interested in making a name for themselves and have a big following with somehow making money every single month off this stuff, right? But for the most part, it's just a dream. But so many people will sell out for the illusion that the dream may happen, may come be fulfilled, right? No, if you're an exceptional talent doing this stuff, you're going to be usurped a long time ago, and either you're going to be absorbed into the cult and to the propaganda machine, or you're going to be recognized as someone that people can't really work with, and you will be kicked out. And what I mean by that is you're going to be too honest. This world doesn't reward honest people. That's the truth. That's the brutal truth. So, yeah, I mean, check out the video. I mean, it's hard for me to swallow. There's some big egos involved in making the video, and mean-spirited behind it. But at the same token, if one can get past that stuff and just really check out what's really going on, there's so many red flags when it comes to the Patterson film that at this point, it's pretty much worthless. If we, after almost 60 years, still can't confirm it one way or the other as being real, all of this other people's words, and just like in a court, in a hearing, right? And a court case, right? You always can find someone for the right money to say whatever the fuck they want. You want them to say. You can't trust anything. The people, there's so many sellouts, so many people who just don't care. They just genuinely just don't care enough about their own integrity, about really doing the ethical and right thing. Very few people do it. Although they'll sing sweet nothings to you and say all the right things that they've learned to figure out how to manipulate you. But the moment no one's looking, they're going to stab you in the back. The real person's going to come out, and you're going to find an awful lot of people in the cryptid community, the Bigfoot community, and dogman community. They aren't what they present themselves to be. But part of the problem is that most people just blindly want to believe that they aren't what they really are. Right? Because people want to belong. They have this need to belong. They have to belong to something, right? I mean, let's be honest. We have not been trained to really value ourselves, the individual, to realize you are the answer in everything, that you should challenge everything. You should question everything. You should question me. You should go and find out for yourself what is the actual truth. You're going to come to the same conclusions I have come through, and that is that Patterson film is not worth shit. That's what it is. You can't prove that it's real. You can't. No matter what my friend, which I still consider a friend, although he probably doesn't, he probably thinks that I'm inferior to him, but that's his choice. MK Davis says he thinks it's the real thing. I don't see any evidence for it at all. just the manipulation of some few stills and this wish that it's actually a actual flesh and blood being. It is a flesh and blood being. It's clear that it's a human being in a suit. And it just drives me nuts. Why can't they just replicate it? I mean, it was filmed from a considerable distance, right? So film it from a considerable distance. Somebody in a suit walking in a similar pattern, in a similar environment, and see how difficult it is to distinguish one way or the other, right? And this is really handy because a lot of times we end up seeing things. They're very shadowy, very like very jet black beings, entities, things of energies, life forms of energy, with spirits or interdimensional beings or whatever the hell they are. And, it's so all these shadowy figures and the blurriness because the real stuff, the real things that people think are Bigfoot clearly has something more in common with poltergeists and ghosts than they actually deal with a flesh and blood thing, which doesn't make a lot of people happy. But the evidence is leading that way. You have to let go of this Patterson film if we're going to go the right direction. And if we really want to know the truth, we're going to have to let go of the Bigfoot community for the most part. Not because we're better than them, it's because we want to know the truth. Those who don't give a shit about the truth, but see this is an opportunity to make money, to be part of some cottage industry, to be in some kind of cult, and find, to hang out with the buddies, the good old boys. Yeah, you know what? You're not going to buck the system. You're going to play both sides. Absolutely, because there's recognition, money, and popularity and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying everybody in the Bigfoot community is doing that. But for the most part, that is exactly what's going on. Because if you there's no way I can figure this shit out. And the rest of these people that have been doing this for 10, 20 years, 5 years, can't come to the same conclusion. Sure, you might have to go through the landmine field of speculation and going through, well, it's demons, it's from the Bible, it's this, that, and everything else, until you realize you've seen stuff, it's real, and the people around you, they don't have any fucking clue what's going on any more than you do, except you had the experiences, and you're going to be honest enough to say this is exactly what happened. And if you don't like the fact that I saw it go through a tree and not break a branch, it ain't my fucking fault. I'm not getting any money from it. I'm not getting any popularity from it. I'm not winning any friends with it. So don't want to believe me? I don't blame you. You want to find out what's the reality, what is the most probable answer to this thing called Bigfoot? You're going to find it real fast. And then you're going to realize that all these artist renderings and these paintings and these sculptures and all these hoaxes and everything else, it's all bullshit. All of it's bullshit. It's just people exploiting you. And the degree of exploitation is sickening. If you think, good con artists, you know what they do? They'll convince you that they love you, that they know God, they know God, right? They know the Creator, they know Bigfoot. This is what good con artists do, right? They say, I know Jesus. And a lot of times the best con artists are the ones who've been conned. They struggle to be honest. Great difficulty in being honest about what's really going on with themselves. And they'll do anything to convince everyone else that they're something other than who they are. You know who I am? I'm a nobody. I'm another critter in the forest. I'm a beat up 56-year-old man who's I think my best accomplishment in life is I've tried to be honest. It's led me down some pretty rough roads because of that. That does not make you popular. People don't want to hear honesty. They just want they want to be charmed. They want to be convinced they're something bigger than themselves. But the problem is there isn't anything bigger than yourself. You is all you got. He might have my son, but he's still his own person. And in a few years, he's going to want nothing to do with his old man, except for maybe out of obligation once a month, or maybe to show up or make a phone call. That's just the way life is. It doesn't make him a bad kid or anything. It's just life. Why do we have such a hard time accepting our simple existence? Everything we do is to try to pretend something other than we are. You ever notice that? The clothing and the plucking and the pulling and the shaving and all sorts. I mean, the classic example of how much of a fraud are we is the resume. Everybody's resume is full of lies. Have you noticed that? And the better the bullshit, the more likely you're going to get a job. Says a lot about our culture, doesn't it? So it make a lot of sense that a lot of people in the Bigfoot community would be freaking con artists, would be bullshit artists, would be people with minimal talent, or if their talent really is just they know how to manipulate a certain segment of society, the more gullible. But the thing is, 99% of the people out there aren't real researchers, never will be researchers. You know, a real researcher is a guy, if Diesel's still around, if you're still around, you're a real researcher. You know, he's out there constantly on his own. He's out in the woods. He's not promoting himself. He's promoting what he's filming. He's not singing sweet nothings to people. He's just doing his thing, trying to figure out stuff. And he's been doing it for a long time. And, you know, there's not a lot of popularity. Although he has got like 1 million views, if you're still around, on a video. But that's like taking forever. And most of his videos are just like the rest of us. You'd be lucky to get 100 views. And 100 views is somebody that actually watches the video. It just doesn't spend 5 minutes and goes on to the next. That's another thing you got to deal with too, is the vast majority of people don't have an attention span. They're not capable of focusing on what you're focusing on for numerous reasons. Hopefully it's because they are working and they're busy living their life. You know what I mean? But regardless of that, you know, it's like with this, it's like I was, you know, hanging out with a friend of mine on TikTok, right? And he was in his car. There's a dude playing his guitar on the bench about 30, maybe 20 yards away. And he decided to walk over to the guy playing the guitar, and he was talking to the guy and having a deep conversation. Probably became friends. We're missing that. And there's something about this, what's going on with this social media, with the internet we're missing close bonds. Not all of you, but for most people, we're missing out on close, intimate bonds, friendships, and all that. Right? And then you got to be careful about those friendships, especially on the internet. Because there's a lot of, birds of a feather flock together. That includes con artists and scoundrels and bullshit artists, and they seem to work together. They a lot of times they grow up together. No one's perfect, far from it. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, one has to make a decision. Do you really want to know the truth, or you just want to be part of the club? Because if you just want to be part of the club, fuck the truth, right? That's just what religion is now, or a cult. That's what happens in all these religions and these political venues and in the workplace. You just want to be part of the cult. You just want that paycheck. You give a shit about everything else. And that's the reason why we have so many problems in society. It's not because there's too many people, or we poorly designed the infrastructure is that we have a problem, and we've been encouraging each other to censor each other and to be dishonest with each other and to bullshit each other instead of getting really honest. This place, you know what? If there's one thing this world truly needs in order for things to change, is a heavy dose of honesty. And I think that most people don't even know what that means or even how to achieve it, because there's so many bullshit lies going in their heads, and they feel like they have to pretend to be something other than they really are. It's disgusting is what it is. It's sad. My fault in all this is I've thought there might be possibly something different about the Bigfoot community somewhere. I already knew that most of it was just corrupt and just a bunch of just wannabe bullshit artists. But there had to be some people that experienced something similar to me that really had encounters and experiences, not just making shit up just to frickin' act like they're Mr. or Mrs. Know-It-All, but really had that stuff. There's somebody that I could share what I'm going through, to really have an honest conversation. And I don't think there's too many out there. What do I mean by that? I mean, people that really know what they're talking about, people that are not motivated by money or what other people think, that aren't trying to climb up the social ladder in the Bigfoot community. We're genuine, real genuine. You would think maybe because of having real weird experiences like I had, that would be a bonding experience. But it's not. It's not even close to being that. It seems to be the people that bond the best and the closest, the bigger the charlatans they are. I'm not saying then that some of these charlatans aren't freaking filming stuff. Half the time they're too blind and too out of their heads to even see what they're filming. Don't even have the capacity long enough to even look at what they've been filming and research it. I don't know. I just got going off here a little bit. So the fact of the matter is that the Patterson film is very questionable. I'm being generous at this point. Very questionable that it's legitimately a Sasquatch. Not saying there's not Sasquatches. I know I've seen something that looks like it, and different manifestations too. So, and like Charles Fort talks about in the Book of the Damned, if you really are a person who's had real encounters, genuine encounters, whether it was with Sasquatch, someone who looks like a dog man, or just a paranormal or a poltergeist, at the end of the day, 99% of the world's not going to fucking believe you as much as they pretend. I'm not going to believe you because they haven't really had that experiences themselves. They're so desperate to have an identity that they'll make up anything to feel like there's something. And if you point out that the reality is that they're nothing. They're no better than anybody else. They don't know any more than you. It's like freaking hanging out with a bunch of freaking pastors or used car salesmen. There's not much difference. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, go back to the beginning of this live and you'll really learn a few things. So open up your eyes. Stuff you probably have not seen at all. Period. Especially if you've been hanging out in your limited hangout called Bigfootery. Anyways. Play some closing music. And hit the road. What should we play? You know, I want Acid Mammoth. I'm in the mood for some Acid Mammoth, I think. Nah, how about some Psychic Lemon? Something really raging.